from the Elf-Rather Sea, a lake in North Rhine-Westphalia, Germany, at an elevation of 30 meters. Its surface area is 0.5 square kilometers or 0.19 square miles. Known popularly as E for short sea, it is located in the northeast of the city of Krefeld, on the border of the Elf-Rath district. They got elves over there in Krefeld. No wonder Dennis is there. We are here today with episode number 26 of the PondCast. I am, of course, as always, your host, Yaku of Nizaku. With me today is El Gigante del Corte de Pelo que mantiene el silencio profesional. And as ever, we are ably produced by Strakonie Krzyzis Protoszmok Kitore Lube Wiele Swatejnich Chiastek Kuro 16 Squad Suzuki. How we all doing?
What's up, Yaku? What's up? It's great to be here. Great to be back once again for another week of the PondCast. I also just realized this is the 26th edition, and we're also going to be covering HomeStory Cup 26. Coincidence?
Yeah, we planned it.
Yeah, true. They
All
planned it.
that. Yeah.
We hounded Dennis so much. He's like, all right, I'll do you a solid. I'll line it up with the 26th edition of your podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, Dennis. Okay,
It's
we'll
really,
forgive
it's
you.
really,
We'll
it's
forgive
really
you.
the least he could do, you know.
Yeah, it really is. You know, he didn't invite any American players. Didn't invite Estrella. Didn't invite Trigger. But you know what? It's fine, Dennis. It's fine. It's okay.
It's fine. Because you know what? It was still a fun HomeStory Cup anyway.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into the trials and tribulations of the HomeStory Cup throughout the cast, of course, throughout the PondCast, I should say. For those of you that are maybe tuning in for the first time, this is our weekly roundup show going over the news and over all the events of the week in StarCraft 2.
Needless to say, spoilers abound.
Oh, yes. Yes. If you have not watched StarCraft this week, then we recommend tuning away because spoilers are going to be ahead.
Yeah, I feel like we never really had to mention that ever since we
True.
brought back the podcast, since of course we
Yeah.
didn't have any major
We've been
offline
spoiling everyone.
events. I mean, aside from Bellum Segura, I guess
Uh-huh.
that happened. But yeah, it's kind of weird to have a podcast now following, actually following a major offline tournament.
Yeah, crazy. But it's great to be back in here once again. As you mentioned, there's a lot to go over as well. Also, as a heads up, we are aware of this, and I'm sure the people in the chat are aware as well. We do have a cast in 3 hours, so regardless of where we are in the podcast, we do have a hard stop because we do have to go and cast and cover Masters Coliseum, the Asia qualifier.
Yeah. We have it set so that Kuro will just bring down the broadcast once we hit that limit. So we gotta zoom. We gotta be zooming.
She'll cut us off the air. She'll cut us off mid-sentence. It's set up. We're good to go. But yeah, honestly, some really interesting stuff here. So some kind of sad news, but also some exciting news as well was released this week. First things first, though, on a bit of a lighter note, we have a new interview from the GLHF Esports or StarCraft Esports Legacy Zombie interview series.
Indeed, and I think it was about 2 weeks ago when we were talking about, who we would like to see coming into GLHF, and we were both thinking, yeah, some of the Team Salmon guys would be cool, Wolf especially, but he's like super busy nowadays. Well, not too busy to talk about, as he put it, his favorite esport title.
Yeah, I mean, this one really hit home for me, Yaku, just because I know that you got into StarCraft a little bit later. I got into StarCraft at the start of Heart of the Swarm 2013, which is also coincidentally when Wolf started casting GSTL, and when GSTL was a thing, like in that 2013 era of StarCraft. So for me, Wolf was a big part. Likewise, he was also part of Team Salmon, coming into Pro League himself, Moonglabe, and Valdez as well. So yeah, he's a big part of those earlier years of StarCraft.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, he was Pro League, essentially. Him and Team Salmon, especially Valdez towards the end there, they were the ones who were kind of carrying that torch after, throughout the entire thing, now that I think about it. They were there at the beginning and all the way until the end.
For sure. So yeah, it's great to see him being interviewed here by Zombie Grub. Honestly, I was really enthralled by the interview. there were some good questions posed by Zombie Girl, but at the same time, it also felt like Wolf. Just like you give him like an inch and he goes a
Yeah.
mile, right? Like he was very much
He
so. It,
understands how to, talk about things
it's crazy.
without being prompted.
It's almost like he talks as a profession. It's wild. But it did feel like he wanted to speak about these things. It did feel like he was
Mhm.
reminiscing himself as well, and he would often delve into like a bit of a story here or there. But yeah, I think it was a really well done interview, and I think he definitely had a lot to say.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, especially, I think this is the first one that came from specifically more of the caster's perspective. And I mean, I know
Hmm.
Crank was the inaugural interview of all this, but that one focused a lot more on, like, his time as a pro gamer and
Hmm.
transitioning to more managerial stuff. Wolf, though, came in and he knew that he was going to be talking about both himself as a StarCraft fan, but also as a caster and what it was like behind the scenes in a way, and kind of how they had to adjust as the game went, as StarCraft evolved. I remember one thing that I kind of forgot about until he brought it up again was during the start of Legacy of the Void, with the games becoming so much shorter, and especially with there being a lot less downtime at the start, casters really had to, and I think it still happens a little bit nowadays. Casters really had to make a decision of, do we want to focus on what's happening or focus on the build that's going on, or do we want to talk a bit more about the players themselves and what this tournament or what this match means to them, and what their history is essentially.
Yeah, exactly. There used to be a lot more downtime, as you're saying, right? In the early game of SC2. So that's kind of the way where casters will take that opportunity to actually talk about the players, talk about the storyline, talk about what's happening, even outside of the game itself. And it was good to kind of like lay down the foundation of the series to come. And as you're saying, we still do that every now and then, definitely. But because the game is a little bit more fast paced, sometimes there isn't the time to actually get into that. And I mean, that's why it's often done pre-show even nowadays
Hmm.
when it comes to some of the more professional events where they go over that ahead of time.
Yeah, they figured it out, but yeah, early Legacy, it was a bit of an adjustment, to say the least.
Hmm. For sure, for sure. But once again, it was really cool to hear from his perspective, getting into StarCraft to begin with, getting into his early days of casting online tournaments, traveling to South Korea. Once again, I do feel like, as it is with all these interviews, where it's like, I feel like we could have gotten even more. We kind of glossed over his travels in Korea, but he kind of spoke about it a little bit. But he was on FX Open, like he was a
Hmm.
part of a team house. I believe he was also playing and trying to get good at the game as well,
He,
alongside casting. Like there's like a lot that could have been spoken about as well, just because there's just so much history there.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was like one of the first foreigners to live in a team house, and so
Yeah.
he recorded a few vlogs of that, and so that was kind
Mhm.
of for the longest time outsiders' understanding of team house culture in Korea.
For sure, right? Like going over all of his vlog content, going through all of his time covering GSL, his time covering Pro League and SSL and everything as well. It did feel like some of these questions were a little bit more specialized, but it was really cool to hear his perspective, like talking about like the early days of GSL and Wings of Liberty, talking about
Uh,
specific players. It did seem like he had a lot to
yep.
say about, or he had a lot of personal stories regarding a lot of players as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, lots of stories going on there, and yeah, again, really cool to see the behind the scenes perspective on things. He talked a lot about like Hero Marine, specifically. Talked a lot about Nestea as well in
Mhm.
other areas. It was, yeah, just possible. I don't know if it's my favorite interview so far, but yeah,
Mhm.
I like you were saying, I was just very enthralled when I was watching this one.
Yeah. I did really appreciate his insights when it came to some behind the scenes stuff. Like he was talking about, for example, his perspective when he was casting the infamous game, where there was a regame during IPL4, the finals
Yep.
between Parting and
Yep.
NKP. And now he was talking about how, like, as a caster, it was really anxious. He didn't really know what to say
Ye-
because you have Mike Morheim in the crowd and all this stuff, and like, do
how
you want to talk about the problems in the game, or do you want to like gloss over it? Like, do you want to bring attention to it?
how
Like he,
how he was like aching, and it was aching to join the crowd and just shout out, "We want LAN!" But he knew
uh-huh.
that he couldn't do that as a caster. He was like, "No, I have to stay professional here."
Yeah, yeah.
I have to thread a very delicate needle of like,
Mhm,
acknowledging the problem, but also not
mhm.
complaining so much about it that I don't get hired again.
Exactly, exactly. That kind of balancing act, and I think he alluded to that a couple of times. Like he even spoke about Total Biscuit. He spoke that as well about how he would often speak his mind, and he'd
Mhm.
often or Total Biscuit would often speak his mind when others wouldn't, just because of some reprisals like that, or just because it could otherwise get you in trouble if you spoke out negatively about certain things as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was really cool to hear that perspective. Definitely. He also went over his side of things once again when it came to the max fishing scandal. This is something
Mhm.
that he's already spoken about in other podcasts, but once again, like because there's so little news coming out of Korea, it's sometimes hard to know what's going on. But he
Yeah.
was talking about some of the more details of that, about like again like phones being confiscated, about players being investigated as well,
He
how and stuff like that.
Yeah. He brought up what he brought up years ago when it was first being when Marine King was first being
Yeah,
investigated. And
yeah.
I know for sure for a lot of people who, because there wasn't a lot of news coming out, or at least not a lot of news that wasn't in Korean coming out at the time. I'm sure for a lot of people watching, this is the first time they actually heard that, I think MVP was the team that Marine King was on at the time, actually did some very thorough and arguably arguably boundary crossing investigations going on there. But yeah, that was, I'm sure for a lot of people, gonna be news to them.
Yeah, yeah. I think we actually talked about that like a couple of weeks ago in the podcast. I think I think
Possibly, yeah.
we spoke about MKP and how that affected him as a player as well, being accused of that sort of thing. So and so many people in the foreign scene, believing that of him as well. So yeah, it was really insightful to hear from him, and definitely a video worth listening to, worth watching, especially if you were around back then. I mean, even if you weren't, it's still really nice to hear all of this, and definitely does open up some doors here. I'm curious who else Summergub would end up encountering and who she would end up interviewing as well. I could be mistaken. Maybe Kuro knows. Is Valdez still in Korea? I'm actually not entirely certain of that.
He, I
I
believe
Uh,
he is.
I
Isn't
think
he?
he
He's married to
actually
a Korean.
yeah, I think he actually got married in Korea, so I think he's still living there,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like I'm thinking Valdez. I'm thinking like Susie Kim. Like I'm thinking like so many like
True.
OG.
Dojung.
Yeah, like so many like OG. Yeah, true. Surge. I'm thinking like so many. There's so many like OG like personalities. From
John, the
SG2.
translator,
Yeah,
since Wolf brought
in
him
the
up.
places. So I think we spoke about like Canada and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of definitely people to interview there. It does come down to like who she has contact with though. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's exciting for sure.
Yeah. Still holding up hope for like JYP or Casper.
Yeah.
Now that we got Wolf, Wolf was probably my number one who I was really hoping for. Now that we got Wolf, my next number one is JYP or Park.
Uh-huh. For sure. For sure. I was part of me would always love to have like a Calder interview. I know he is not in Korea anymore. He is back
Yeah,
in
I was
Europe.
gonna
Has been
say.
for a long time. But definitely I mean, she did go to
But you
Europe, I
know what?
guess, technically
Yeah,
recently. Yeah, true.
she was interviewing people at HomeStory Cup. I think some of
Yeah,
the casters actually brought that up during the mainstream, but we'll get into
for
that
sure.
later.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, she was there. She was hosting interviews for this very documentary series as well. So
Mhm.
hard at work, for sure, for sure. But yeah, definitely an interview worth checking out, and definitely did appreciate it. Do you have any other thoughts on the interview itself? I know that again, some of this is maybe before your time, something that caught your attention, something that you found really interesting.
Uh, yeah, it was mostly the casting stuff, like you were saying.
Mhm.
It's mostly the cast. Yeah, mostly just the insights that he was getting, and mostly the things that he brought up, where it's like, oh yeah, I kind of know what I kind of know what this is. Obviously, at a much different scale as
Mhm.
compared to Wolf, but yeah, some of the issues that he was talking about are trying to the stuff that he was trying to figure out as a caster, right? I was like, yes,
Mhm.
I I've been there as well.
For sure, for sure. So
Not
definitely worth. Mhm.
I gotta mention any technical issues that that could have been avoided 2 years
Tr-
ago.
True,
But
true.
you know,
Um, regardless,
uh,
regardless. Mhm.
I think another one was also interesting hearing his perspective because he talked a lot about something else that was interesting, but also something that I feel like I specifically would need to be more informed about was they talked a little bit about Kespa and specifically the licensing between Blizzard and Kespa during
Mhm.
the early days, which I vaguely heard about. I mean, I specifically remember the quote that, or the line that Zombie Grub quoted of Kespa being a little bit dismissive, shall we say, to Blizzard coming in and being like, "Hey, we want more of a share because this is our IP, blah blah blah." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that did happen," but and so I'm glad that they brought it up and went into that a little bit. Uh, Wolf specifically talking about how the IP laws in Korea are a little bit different, so obviously they weren't gonna, obviously they weren't gonna be, what's the word I'm thinking of here? Obviously they weren't just gonna cave to Blizzard or something like that. But yeah, that's a good introduction, but I feel like I myself need to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah,
Maybe pick up that book that was published recently.
for sure, for sure. I mean, there's a lot to get into there. Again, for those that don't know, there was a lawsuit, and Blizzard, they wanted to basically have Kespa pay them for using their for televising their game and using it as an esport, on these programs, on OGN and on Sport TV games and all that stuff. In the end, Blizzard did lose that lawsuit, but because of that tension that there was between Blizzard and Kespa, it did kind of like set the tone for their relationship, and things were very shaky thereafter because Kespa was
and-
like, what the hell, like you guys were trying to
And-
extort us or something, right? And all this stuff, like it's yeah.
And that was the reason why Kespa didn't switch to StarCraft 2 immediately.
Oh, yeah,
during its
yeah.
delivery.
For sure,
So
for
had to
sure.
sort all of that out, and they only sorted that out in Heart of Swarm.
Yeah. There's a there's definitely a lot there, and I also didn't know there was a book published about it, so that's definitely something that definitely interests me as well. Depending on how many more details, or I'm sure they have like translated minutes of like court hearings and stuff like that, which would be really interesting to hear. I would imagine, but. Yeah, with that, definitely do recommend checking out the interview with Wolf. Definitely. A little bit biased because I'm a big fan of Wolf, but regardless, really cool to hear his perspective of things.
I just noticed something. I'm not sure if Kuro still has the tweet up on screen. I think that may be a bit of a glitch on Twitter because that is Gemini's description.
Oh, description.
Yeah, it says Wolf talks StarCraft history. Under
Yeah,
that, Gemini's been a huge fan of SC since the
In
early
the,
days.
in the description,
Good old
embed,
Twitter.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Something-
the embed.
I haven't checked if that's the same thing on the video, but sometimes the
It's
embeds
not.
do
I just
pull.
checked it.
Yeah, sometimes the embeds do pull
It-
like all the information.
On
Yeah.
on YouTube, it's the actual like Wolf description. Well, not Wolf specifically. This one is more talking about GLHF, but yeah, Gemini isn't mentioned on the YouTube description.
Yeah, that tells us that maybe Gemini's description was there by accident, and then it was fixed, but it's still in the embed on Twitter. So there you go.
Hashtag blame E-Mini.
There you go. But with that, that we'll be moving on to some other news happening here in StarCraft as well. Something that's a little bit bleaker or a little bit sadder to hear is that we do have some players leaving the Platinum Heroes.
Yes, indeed. Some players who we ourselves have been, had the pleasure to cast extensively in these past couple of, actually years at this point for some of them. Yeah, some of them who we've got pretty close to that we've become pretty big fans of here on the CranKy Ducklings channel. The contracts of specifically Nikic, Russian Art, Eggs or Huevos from Colombia, if I remember correctly, and also Shadown from France have expired and will not be re-signed.
Did I know that they misspelled art?
I believe
Someone
I don't
pointed
think
it
they
out
do.
to
That's,
us,
that's
yes.
the,
Yeah.
that's the name
Yeah.
for Polish art. Yeah.
they did. Oh no. Okay, well, I'll definitely
I
tweet at
didn't
them
I
later.
didn't even catch that. I didn't catch that at first. Yeah, good eye.
God damn it. So, yes, that is the Russian art that has since been let go, and that is definitely a little bit sad to hear. I mean, we spoke about this before. This is not the first wave of or I should say, this is not the first wave of players
Yeah,
leaving the Platinum Heroes. Just because they did have a very large roster, and especially now that WTL is on an indefinite hiatus, it makes sense for them to thin their roster out
I
even
think
more.
I think we kind of knew that this was coming, but yeah, that knowing that doesn't help. Doesn't really soften the sting that much.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, some of these players aren't as active. Nikic and Art are, but Eggs, he doesn't really compete in too many events anymore. Shidown, likewise, doesn't really compete in too many online events either. But if they do continue to
He
compete, I do hope they can find a nice place.
well, he was active in WTL, but yeah,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
right. He wasn't active outside of that. Outside of the team leagues.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure, for sure. But I do hope that they're able to find a nice team to join to continue their endeavors. When it comes to these players leaving the Platinum Heroes, we did actually get a bit more of an explanation about that decision by Tassad. Tassad, I believe he is one of the higher ups in the Platinum Heroes. He is also one of the main funders of the Platinum Heroes as well. Like, he does put his own personal money into the team, which is how they're able to afford their pro team as well. So he definitely had some words to speak about the decision that was made, which was interesting to hear from him. And definitely a big reason, what I will say, a big reason for this decision, of course, is WTL, but also like
Mhm.
just the insecurity that a lot of people
Yeah.
have at the moment, which is understandable when it comes to the future of StarCraft and any future announcements of what's meant to be happening with StarCraft esports.
Yeah, I wasn't quite able to read all of this before the show because I only figured I only got the alert to this tweet like an hour beforehand. But yeah, skimming through it, I think he does echo a lot of what a lot of other people have been saying about, like I said, the insecurity about the future of the competitive scene and also the potential. Well, I mean, we know for a fact WTL is not going to continue for quite some time, but
Hmm.
yeah, the way it's phrased here is that the potential end of WTL.
Yeah, yeah. When it comes to his opinion piece here, I mean, a lot of it does feel a little bit like personal, as to obviously, because he's a little bit biased. He's obviously invested in his own team, and wanting to know more about the future for his team. It does make a lot of sense. Some of it, yeah, I mean, when it comes in, when we go into some of what he's speaking of here, some of it I can definitely get behind. Basically, one of the big things is lack of communication. We were even criticizing this when it came to the patch, right? We were talking about how it felt like, the map pool and the person deciding, the balance as well, and kind of dictating the goal of the patch. There was like a little bit of like a disconnect going on there, and it's kind of weird to hear that. If you recall, we also heard from map makers about how they were really disgruntled about the maps that were chosen, as alongside the old maps chosen as well, and like that doesn't bode well. Like, it does feel like when it comes to the structure of these things, and how ESL are handling it, there's a bit of mismanagement that's going on there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So that's definitely something that we can get behind, and it's definitely something that
I
we hope improves in the future.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as I myself am not a team owner, nor am I sponsoring a team,
Huh.
unlike some of the other people in this call, I can't really speak to that. So I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we like we went over it when we spoke about the patch, right? Like, about how like some decisions being made didn't make as much sense, like the map pool as well, like the choice of some of the patches,
Yeah,
or the choice of some of the
like the
balance
like the
decisions.
final decision flat out seemed to contradict
Yeah.
the rationale that they were given
Mm-hmm.
beforehand when they were like specifically the final map pool with the three legacy maps in particular seems to
Mm-hmm.
contradict what they said that their intentions for the next for what they hoped would be the next metas or what the playstyles that they were hoping to discourage.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of you can't really reconcile those two. They are contradicting each other.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I can definitely understand some of the frustrations about that. Some of the other frustrations that he had was just, again, the lack of word from ESL regarding EWC. That's like I'm more understanding for ESL when it comes to not announcing anything yet. I would imagine because what he's speaking of is he wishes that like at least like some people were told so that they can give us reassurances. I think in the past, maybe some of the casters were informed of what's to come, or maybe some other key community members, so they
Yeah,
could they could let people know like, oh, everything's okay, like there's things in the works. But I would
that
imagine the reason why they haven't done that is because they're probably still in negotiations. Like I
yes.
like I don't
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything firm. Like they don't want to lie and be like, oh no, yeah, don't worry guys, there's more to come in the future, when they're like still working things out with like EWC. So like I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that that's the reason why there's no news.
Yeah. I mean, if you'll recall, back in 2020 or 2019 into 2020,
Mhm.
when there was also a similar, it didn't last quite as long as this much, but there was also a little bit of a longer gap between announcing the future tournaments and the end of BlizzCon of that year, specifically
Mhm.
because that was Blizzard was in the middle of handing off the competitive scene to ESL. And so
Mhm.
that's why there was a little bit of a delay, but yeah, once the negotiations ended, before the announcement came, we had casters saying like, "Stay tuned because there is news coming" and stuff like that.
Yeah, this definitely made
This
me
time it's a
think
little
of.
bit longer though.
Yeah, it
The
is. It definitely
negotiations.
is. And this definitely made me think about what could be coming as well. Like this made me a little bit curious because we actually didn't really get into the details of EWC. If you remember, last time we spoke about it was a couple of podcasts ago, and I referred to how there were leaked documents about the future like 4 or 5 year plan of EWC and what they want out of the Esports World Cup and what they hope to achieve, and what they're approaching tournament organizers and team owners regarding. And I kind of glossed over it because it's like they're still
It's
working
like
through
a
things.
yeah, it's like a
Um,
multiple page document that isn't even permanent yet. So we didn't really want to
mhm.
we didn't really want to speculate too much on
For
something that
sure.
could very easily change.
For sure. If we're speculating about like why it is taking ESL so long to come to go live with some kind of like firm announcement, I would have to imagine it is because EWC plan on running their esports World Cup and being the center of
Their own
esports
circuit.
for, yeah, their own circuit for a number of years, that they probably are trying to future proof. Like, for example, because you just reminded me, back when Blizzard handed it over to ESL, they announced, what was it, 3 years? They announced three
Yep.
years of EPT, and the circuits and all that stuff. And I would imagine that they would want to do the same thing here with EWC, considering that they do want to run this until I think it is 2028. EWC, I mean, I think that's when currently what their plans are for leading up to that. But there are also some
Riyadh.
complications when it comes to what EWC wants. They want Riyadh to be the center. And again, this is
The
from
next Katowice.
well, yeah, this is leaked documents from a couple of months ago now. So obviously things may have changed from now. But originally they did want EWC to be the center of esports in more ways than one. They didn't just want the finals to be there. They wanted as much as possible there as
They
well. They
wanted to
wanted
create a
teams.
hub.
Yes, and they wanted teams to have their own like offices there as well. They wanted like teams and employees to be
I mean,
working there from Riyadh. They wanted teams to regularly go there for like photo shoots and for player spotlights. Like it's quite ambitious. It's quite ambitious what they want, and they've got the money for it. To
yeah,
be fair, but like
I
I get the feeling that they're asking a lot from these organizers. They're asking a lot of
yeah.
commitment from these teams.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, they're gonna go ahead and build that regardless. Like
Yeah.
from you're you're making me remember like the research I did for my final for my final
Uh huh.
semester a year ago
Uh huh.
about this. But it's like yeah, they're committed to building that infrastructure no matter what. It's
Hmm.
just what they're gonna use it for is what they're still kind of deciding. And like you said, based on the leaked documents, they did stipulate that they want the teams. They don't just want their own local talent to be using it. They also want players and teams from other countries to
Hmm.
specifically come to Riyadh, stay in Riyadh, and
Hmm.
practice in Riyadh.
Exactly. And
And that's a pretty big ask if you IMO,
it is. It is
especially in
a
StarCraft now when we
uh-huh.
don't really have team houses anymore. We have boot camps. Team Liquid does
Mhm.
boot camps, but for the most part, people play from and practice from their homes.
For sure, for sure. I also wouldn't be surprised if maybe they also, because they're built and building a bunch of like stadiums and stuff like that in places for competition to take part. I'm curious if like maybe they even want the seasonal events to be in Riyadh as well. Like I'm referring to, your EPT winter finals, EPT spring finals, EPT summer finals.
Yeah.
Instead of those being at your DreamHacks or IEMs, it is possible that they want to again centralize that as well, and that's the sort of thing that I'm sure ESL are
Which,
trying to negotiate and figure out. How many seasonal events, are they going to be there, are they not, which events are they going to be at specifically, like I would
yeah.
imagine there's a lot of complexity when it comes to what exactly they want to finalize coming into it.
Yeah. I mean, that would make sense from the perspective of the EWC, right? Because they're investing
Hmm.
so much money specifically for their tourism industry.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
would want people to come visit as much as possible. But obviously, from the
Hmm.
perspective of ESL, I don't want to say that's a no go because
Hmm.
nowadays they are centralizing a lot more of their tournaments. Like I know in Counter Strike, for instance, a
Hmm.
lot of them are just being centralized in like one in Germany and one in Poland, typically.
Hmm.
But that whole like international circuit of like going to DreamHacks, having going to NA and having the NA crowd, and then going to
Hmm.
Europe and having the EU crowd, and then in the past they will come to Southeast Asia and have the Asian crowd, but then they don't do
Hmm.
that anymore. But like they used to go to Brazil and all that. That's something that I know ESL is very much into, and
Hmm.
only recently they've started trimming that down to NA and EU specifically for
Hmm.
cost reasons.
For sure, for sure. And like that's the kind of stuff that I'm sure they're trying to iron out with EWC, just because it's not just that, oh, we have the finals now in Riyadh. It's like, okay, now we can construct a circuit. No, there's probably a lot more going into how the circuit itself is going to be reconstructed for
It
EWC, if at all, right? And for how many years as well, right? Because I'm sure ESL, they want to secure a multi-year plan instead of just like a single year after year sort of thing, to have a little bit more security as well. Like again, I'm sure these are all factors coming into play, and it's not kind of a one and done
yeah.
deal. So I'm understanding as to why it's taking a little bit longer, for sure.
Making me making me picture now like the esports Thunderdome. Once you enter the Riyadh, you can never leave.
Yeah, yo, I mean, mate, the amount of money that they're
Uh,
spending there is
oh
crazy. Like,
man,
they've built
they want to
like
get their money's
entire
worth.
office complex and like hotels for players and like these boot camp areas for specific teams as well. Like, they basically want to create like a little esports city.
Pretty
It's. I
much,
mean,
yeah.
they're doing it. I mean, they're doing it. It's not about like a when or if. It's about it's happening now. And that is something that has to be taken into consideration. So, although I understand Tassad's like frustrations when it comes
Mhm.
to lack of communication regarding EWC and regarding next year, I do think that there's probably reason for that, and I wouldn't necessarily be too doomer about that specifically. I'd like to
Yeah,
believe that we will eventually get news regarding that.
yeah. Hopefully, one that doesn't centralize everybody into just one city. Yeah, I mean, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. See what happens, and I'm sure we'll find out what occurs. Especially because when it comes to that centralizing, that I think that is more specific for the teams themselves, less so the esport organizer. But I mean, who
Yeah.
knows? I mean,
Who knows?
I don't know. So
Who knows? I mean, ESL, huge, the same, yeah, the same the same whatchamacallit company that's funding EWC is also a major shareholder in ESL
oh
now.
yeah,
So who knows?
yeah, for sure, for sure, for a while now, for a while. So yeah, we'll see what does happen with that. The other thing, of course, is because of that lack of communication. That's where Tacit expresses like, that's why there's no like WTL's on like an extended hiatus and all that stuff. Definitely understandable. Definitely does impact him as a team owner as well when it comes to the Platinum Heroes. I do know that I believe Tassad is trying to push an initiative to maybe have a replacement for WTL, maybe with a lower budget, something similar to like, I don't know, like even the oh god, what was I thinking of? Like the caster. Remember
Civil
it
War.
wasn't. Oh yeah, like the battle chest event. Do you remember that? The caster like
Yeah, the caster where they would draft their own teams to
yeah.
become pro players.
I think
That
it was
wasn't
just
caster
called
Civil
Caster
War, but it was
Invitation.
called
Oh no,
yeah,
Yeah,
there
no,
was Civil War too. Sure.
That's it,
Caster
Civil War.
Invitational War.
Yeah. So I think he was trying to draw inspiration from that when it comes to at least the prize pool and prize distribution and the quality of players. So
Crowdfunding
it is
prize,
possible.
yeah.
Yeah, it is possible that maybe an initiative like that picks up and takes off. But more likely, again, whenever we do get word about next year in the future of esports and EWC for StarCraft 2, then maybe SC Boy, they do throw their hat back into the ring, and maybe WTL does return. I think that's important to take note as well. I know, like, it can be easy to be like, it's never coming back, but like they did leave the door open. You know, they
Yep.
were like, it's going to be going on an extended hiatus until we get word of what's happening.
Yeah. Until we can actually
Yeah.
plan around, the
Yeah.
circuit.
For sure.
We don't just want to have the WTL and then all of a sudden we get the announcement, oh yes, we're gonna have freaking SC2 Masters next month, and it's like, well, I guess we got to put this on the back burner for another 2 months.
For sure. Did have that news from Tassad, or at least his opinion and his rationale as to their team letting some players go. Likewise, speaking of teams letting their players go, we have something similar here. Hyper One, the owner of Team Hyper One, and also one of the main contributors to some of his own events, and also to StarCraft Evolution as well. He did recently announce that he wanted to take a bit of a step back from competitive StarCraft, from supporting competitive StarCraft, and take a bit of a break from that specifically. Did still say that he wanted to still be invested into StarCraft Evolution, but in other aspects less so.
Yeah, and very understandable as well, looking at, we talked about it just last week, right? Hyper One, he is a very big contributor when it comes to a lot of, these events, organizing them and also funding them, but he's also very, very active in the map making community. And
yeah.
As we talked about last week, ESL / Blizzard / the Balance Council / the janitor, whoever's in charge of picking the final map pool, it feels like just kind of not even ignored feedback from the map makers, but just kind of, I don't want to say held them in contempt, but kind of just, gave them one set of instructions, but in the end didn't. And after they followed those instructions, decided not to have anything come out of that in the end. So yeah, I get where Hyper One is coming from, and this is unfortunate to say the least for the competitive side. But like I said, you gotta do what you gotta do,
Yeah, for Hyper One, it is a little more personal because, as you said, he is a map maker, right? He is a map maker. He is a little closer to the map maker community, and as you mentioned, like they definitely have been very, very upset with the most recent handling of the map pool, regarding maps chosen and regarding the old introduced maps as well, regarding like feedback that was ignored, as you mentioned. Like it was worse than just ignoring feedback. It was the fact that ESL, they asked for their recommendations, and then they didn't use them, right? I think that's the worst
Not
part.
only didn't use them, also it's almost like they asked them for recommendations specifically so that they could do the opposite.
Yeah,
And
like that's the worst thing.
Even worse.
Yeah, like if they never asked, then whatever, right? But because they took the initiative to ask and have them put in the work of
Like,
having their own
it's insulting.
kind of ratings. Yeah, it definitely. So it is understandable that that Hyper One and Patches as well. I think we went over that last week. But the two of them have been very, very much so feel like slighted almost, and I'm definitely very emotional about what occurred, and as a result, Hyper One does want to take a bit of a step back. For Hyper One, it's two big things. It's that, but I don't know if you heard, but with the introduction of the new patch, it broke the replays again, of course.
Yep.
And Hyper One was very invested in StarCraft Evolution, and basically StarCraft Evolution League finished a couple of days later. The patch went live, and it broke those replays, and it meant that any other casters that did want to cover those replays and did want to cover StarCraft Evolution, which is an event that he invested quite a lot of money into, they no longer could, right? They just straight up could no longer cover those replays and cover the event. So as a tournament organizer, like that hits even worse a little bit for him, especially because he's so passionate about StarCraft Evolution. He wants people to see it. He wants people to cover it. He wants people to get eyes on it. It's a big event, and now they can't.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, patches breaking the replays, that's common. That happens. But I think the part of it that's worse this time is, again, as we were talking about last week, there was just no information about when the patch would have gone live. Like if they announced we're gonna go live with this patch on, what was it, 20 something 1 week ago, it was like 28th or so on the 28th of November, that gives you notice, right? That gives both the tournament organizers notice, and it also gives the casters who would have wanted to cover the replays notice so that they could get their content out as quickly as possible. But because there
Or
was
delay
no
it.
announcement, yeah, or delay it.
Yeah.
But because there was no announcement, it's like, oh yeah, I'll have time to do this like next week or whatever. Nope, all of a sudden you can't do it. So
Yeah, it was without announcement on a Monday when the tournament ended on a Sunday. If you remember
Yep.
the Pigos hour, like
Yeah.
it was like 2 hours before the Pigos hour Monday, so they literally didn't know what kind of patch they will play on. But there's also another part to this story, specifically to SC2 Evo or SC Evo, because apparently there's also an issue with uploading things specifically to Korea server, specifically to Asia. And because of that, I think there are some issues with patching as StarCraft Evolution on Asia specifically. Like apparently the smaller mods, like like the Cyclone mode, like things like that generally
Right.
pass through, but
But they're-
anything more
yeah.
ambitious is having issue recently.
Yeah, so again, just because he's so personally invested in two things, right, in map making and in StarCraft Evolution, and both would negatively be affected, he's like, I just can't right now. Like, he's taking a big step back. He's
Yep.
like, and I hope he takes care of himself as well, because I know he was very emotional about all of that as well. He was very upset. And I wish him the best. Wish him the best for sure.
Lots of love, Hyper One. Again, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. Just
Mhm.
you gotta do what you gotta do. Prioritize your mental state when you need to.
For sure. On the plus side, for the CranKy Ducklings, we did cast. we did cast StarCraft Evolution. We cast it like 10 hours later, so we were fine. We got all of our casts in, finally. Let's go. We love you, everyone. We love you. But yeah. So with that, he does step away.
Exclamation mark! YouTube ended.
No. Don't turn into Grendor. Don't be like, buy my shirts. Oh god. But with that does go over at least some of our news here for the week. But up next is the big event of the hour itself, is HomeStory Cup 20.
Yes. Oh man, what an event! I mean, like we were mentioning a little bit in the first, as we were coming into this podcast, it was the first offline event since Bellum Zagora months ago. Not only that, but it was also one that had a lot of coverage. It was one that had, all of our fan favorites, all of them. Maybe not all of them, but most of them this time. Maru making his debut, and I think we absolutely felt it. Like, I think it was something that was permeated a little bit. Like, that was what this event really radiated, right? From the casters, from the crowd, from even Twitch chat itself. I mean, I found myself active in chat for the first time in a very long time, because I was let's fucking go. You could really tell that I think a lot of us, most of us anyway, were really craving HomeStory Cup, or at least some kind of offline event to come back. And so, I felt pretty satiated.
Yeah, when it comes to the games themselves, when it comes to the event itself, I think it was really hype. It was really cool, the players that got involved, and everyone that got invited, and how a lot of the groups planned out as well.
Yeah, I know it's a bit of a meme, the HomeStory TVT Cup coming into the playoffs, but I was brought. TVT is actually enjoyable now. IMO. I was brought back to 2023 Katowice, when before the Cyclone changes went live, and after they made the Sensa Towers raid, and after they nerfed Sensa Towers, TVT was my absolute favorite matchup from that tournament until a few months ago when they changed the Cyclone and the Cyclone meta reigned. TVT went from my favorite matchup to my least favorite to watch. Now I'm back. I don't know if TVT is necessarily my favorite matchup again, but I actually enjoy it now again.
No, yeah.
So
yeah, it's
brilliant.
I think for I think TVT is one of those matchups that gets a really bad rap because of how long it was a bad matchup. For many years, it was a slower matchup. You know, the siege lines staring down each other was a meme for a reason. But as you were saying, as of I want to say like a couple of years ago, like
Hey,
TVT became a lot more active and a lot more enjoyable. A lot of variety in the builds. As you mentioned, I 100% agree. The previous
Cyclone
patch,
reversion,
yeah, the
huge
with
step,
the
huge
Cyclone
step.
versus Cyclone meta was brutal, and that was not ideal and not what people wanted whatsoever. But yeah, it's definitely something worth tuning into and definitely a lot of
Yeah,
fun
I'm 100% biased here.
for
But I
sure.
do think that, but I do think that when it comes to the games themselves, the highlights were the TVTs. Maru versus Gumiho was insane. That was
Mhm.
one that got me into the chat again to be like, "Let's go, more Marines!" That Maru coming down from an 0-2 deficit, seeing Gumiho a little bit flustered as well, going all the way into the ace match, but then suddenly Gumiho getting flustered a bit, but then keeping calm, collected, winning that match, and then going all the way to win everything. That was an insane story. I think anybody who doubted Gumiho, not to name any names, but I'm totally going to name one name, Wax Angel, in your HomeStory Cup preview, doubting the Gumi God.
Wow. Wax, what's going on, Wax? What's happening? You didn't believe in Gumi God, mate? What's happening? Shaking my head.
Shaking my head. Oh, but you see, Cyril is an amazing player, and Clem is also the world champion, and Maru, man, he's also for the longest time, been the Terran player. It's not gonna be Gumiho. Well, you see.
This is where Yaku has to start making his power rankings again for the tournaments. He has to
It's where I
with
have
his
to
thoughts
actually
and
stop
predictions.
being lazy and actually start writing again.
Let's go. Let's go. But when it comes to the event itself, it was a pretty intense event. Obviously, here in the CranKy Ducklings, we were able to cover. We were the B stream. We did cover the group stage and the playoff bracket as well. First things first, this event did take part a couple of days after the patch went live, which was a little bit of a concern, just because the patch did break things, and only this morning was there a bug fix for the patch, by the way. So it was a week later. Thankfully, though, big shout out to some community members, because before the event began, of course, a mod was pushed through. A mod was created that did bug fix, basically bug fix
Yep.
the game. Did fix the Cyclone, the Oracle, and some other changes as well. And because of that, that wasn't plaguing the event. Honestly, if it wasn't for the mod that was made, this would have been a very different tournament. This would have been seen in a very different light as well. So thankfully, that didn't plague this event. But it is brutal that that the Cyclone bug was live in the game for as long as it was, for again a week. Thankfully, was fixed this morning. For those who don't know.
It is now live on the ladder version, so you no
Mhm.
longer have to use Observer plus Cyclone, which, thankfully, I mean, just seeing those two words next to each other, plus and Cyclone,
True.
that
I will
sends
say
shivers down
though,
my spine.
as far as I know, not everything has been fixed in this patch yet, but yeah, most things
So
should be.
The
the reason
major things were.
Yeah, the reason why it's uncertain is because the game got bug fixed, but there are no patch notes, so people are trying to figure out what was fixed and what wasn't fixed. So there's a lot of people putting in some work when it comes to like unit
Playtesting.
tester. Yes, yeah, that like unit testing and trying to see what's working, what isn't working, and coming up with their own patch notes basically is what's happening right now, like as we speak. So shout out to those that are putting in the work in that endeavor. So much love. Much love to those that are going and creating their own patch notes, because apparently patch notes are too hard to make. Blizzard, ESL. But outside of that, the event itself, there was also, I'm sure you're aware, as you were watching,
Yeah.
we were casting, something that did plague the event heavily, especially the first 2 days. Less so in day 3, but still did plague day 3 as well. Quite heavily, actually. I do recall Raynor versus it was in the group stage, I believe. Raynor versus
Clem.
Yeah, Raynor versus Clem. That was
I
on the
remember that.
mainstream that was impacted.
It
Uh,
it got delayed by like I think 15 minutes or something like that. So by the time we actually came back, Rainer was just like, let's just go to the next map, bro.
yeah, they actually loaded in and Raynor instantly GG'd. He insta GG.
Yeah.
He just insta GG. They just left the game after they recovered the game. But for those that are curious what we're talking about, there were some networking issues at HomeStory Cup. It was very unfortunate, but the mainstream kept going down. Players kept dropping out. It wasn't just the mainstream that was affected, but players' PCs, like for even matches that we were a part of, for example, players would experience lag spikes, and it was quite a frustrating experience for the players.
Correct me if I'm spreading misinformation, but I think Dennis did mention at some point that there was construction going on somewhere nearby, or they were updating the infrastructure at around the time. So that was why the internet in Krefeld was just real terribly unstable for a couple of weeks. But from what I've heard, internet in Germany in general is very unstable. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, this is new because this has never happened in HomeStory Cup before, right? Like, like typically at HomeStory Cups, everything's smooth, everything's fine. This is the worst it has been for sure. And I felt mainly badly. I felt mainly bad for the players just because a lot of them were getting really annoyed and really fed up. You know,
like they just flat out couldn't do anything. Like they couldn't leave the game. They couldn't, you know. They had to have their food brought to them if they wanted to eat, so they couldn't get to witness Big Gabe in his glory.
For sure. So that is definitely something that did negatively affect the event, which is a shame. I also know that I mean the Take guys, they were also really upset. I think even Dennis at times was speaking about it, and he was. I mean, you can imagine, right? We were talking about Hyper One, similar situation where Take, he invested heavily into this big offline event. He flew over a bunch of players, and then they're getting like a subpar experience, and then some of them even getting a negative experience at the event, and it's like. Like it's
some of them appearing for the first time and
being
like, well, I'm never coming back here again.
Yeah, it is a shame. It is a shame that did occur. But as you mentioned, thankfully the vibes when it came to the show itself was solid. And I'm sure the people there, outside of some of those hiccups during the games, did have a good time nonetheless. At least I do hope so. So that is something that was plaguing the event.
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, they were able to make the best out of a bad situation. Really worst timing possible situation, but shout out to the organizers, the casters. Shout out to old mate Rico, the magician, for
let's go
for just making a show out of it. Just
Rico with the tight pants.
Hell yeah!
Oh god, love Rico.
I couldn't tell if that was as well in this fight.
Yeah, fair enough. When it comes to the event itself, obviously TBT galore here. Something that I would emphasize coming into this is, as you mentioned, we did have some big names, some big invites. The Korean Zerg players were nowhere to be found, so there was no Sola, there was no Dark, there was no Shin. It came down to Raynor, Lambo, Laser, and Serral. And coming into this tournament, I was really curious to see the form of some of these players, specifically Lambo and Laser. If you remember, coming into HomeStory Cup, we were talking about how Laser's been playing a lot of Stormgate. Lambo hasn't been very active, so we were curious how they were going to perform.
Yeah, I specifically remember predicting Laser to advance over Ryung, and I was definitely pleasantly surprised to see that Ryung did advance.
Yeah, for Group D,
if you're Laser, man, but
if you remember, you predicted Laser over Ryung. I predicted Harsum over Ryung. We were both wrong. Ryung, how could we doubt it?
Yeah. It felt pretty good on day 2 having Ryung on my spacebar. I was like, yes!
Yeah, there you go.
He actually beat a Laser. He actually beat a Zerg player.
But yeah, Ryung, he was looking quite solid here. So as you were kind of mentioning, Group D, we had Serral coming out undefeated, as to be expected. Ryung in second place. When it comes to some of the other players here, again, the big contenders were going to be a Laser and Harsum. Again, a Laser's not necessarily at his peak condition as he usually is, and seeing his matches against Ryung was just playing very, very well. It was very impressive to see Ryung in form once again. It was really cool to see him not just being there to support Maru, but also there as a competitor, as a strong competitor.
I'm not gonna lie, I woke up the next day and I looked at the playoff bracket and I 100% mainlined Hopium, because I was like, okay, Ryung,
Yeah,
he
true.
can beat Maru. He
Yeah,
can easily
yeah.
beat Maru. He 100% he's gonna 3-0 either Gumiho or Himarine if it comes up to him. Clem gonna be a little bit closer, but Ryung, the TVT god, he's beaten Clem numerous times in the online cups. And then if Clem beats Cyril again, then that's Ryung, he's got us in the bag. And then Maru just 0-3'd him. I was like, or 3-0'd him. I was like, ah.
To be fair,
Man.
some of those are really close games. That Maru versus
True.
Ryung is not a series to sleep
It
on. Let
was
me tell you.
I don't remember. Amygdala, is that the one with the neon? That one was
Ultra
a
Love.
close one.
Ultra Love.
Ultra Love. That one was a very
Yes.
close one that I remember.
Ultra Love was crazy if you're because we were casting it on the B stream. Ultra Love was Ryung, took a massive lead, played mech, cut the
Yep.
map in half, and maxed out. And we had a
And then
split map
didn't do
scenario
anything.
Ryung versus Maru. And the problem is the Maru, he was crazy. Do you remember that game? He double expanded, he skipped his
Double-
Raxes, he went triple
Yeah.
star mass, like he rushed
I-
into Sky Terran. It was crazy what Maru did.
Yeah. And that was like the name of the game for him to the tournament, right? I didn't even notice it until somebody pointed out in chat. Where somebody was like, "I hate how Maru just plays so greedy, but gets away with it." And I'm like, "Oh shit, you're right. That's been his MO this entire time until Gumiho realized, wait a minute, I should just kill Maru. I can just kill him."
Unironically, like Ultra Love Maru versus Ryung was one of the highlights of the night for me. That was wild. We are jumping a little bit ahead though, but we did just go over Group D. When it comes to the group stage itself, there were definitely, I mean, for good reason, definitely a lot of people have been talking about, you know, the Terran patch here, but the lack of Protoss and Zerg representation coming into the playoffs. There are definitely some key results here that did lead to that though, and definitely some upsets, I would say, coming into the group stage.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, for sure. I would say the main upsets were, for me anyway, came down to Group C and Group D. Humarine advancing over Raynor and Ryung advancing over Elazer. But, you know, as we were mentioning, you know, Raynor and Elazer, we don't really know what the state of their form is. So it's a little bit of an upset, but not too much. In Group A and B, less so. Although I gotta say, Showtime barely not making it out on the Spirit. That one hurt. I really
for
wanted
me,
a rematch. I really wanted a rematch between Gumiho and Showtime.
For me, that was the big one. I think we were both in unison for Group B that it would be Maru and Showtime. I think we were both on that Showtime like hype train and Spirit.
Yeah, I think I predicted Showtime to come out number 1. Actually,
yeah.
I was like, he's got it in him. He can 100. If he doesn't beat Maru, then Maru will at least lose as many. Will at least lose another series, and the map score will put Showtime ahead. And I was like, well, it didn't quite come to pass. And
Spirit.
I know I called him out earlier, but credit to Wax Angel. His prediction actually did come to pass. His prediction of Spirit beating Showtime because Spirit, plays a little bit more defensively, and Showtime doesn't do too well against that style of Terran. That one did come to pass, so credit to you, Wax Angel, but I'm still gonna dock points for doubting the Gumi God.
There you go. Yeah, as you said, like that's maybe the first big upset of the tournament was Spirit defeating Showtime and denying Showtime a chance at the playoffs, despite the fact that he came second. And I do think that he was really the other Protoss player that we were hoping to see in the playoff bracket, to see more Protoss shine. And with Showtime falling in the early rounds, that strips that away. Shout out to Nightmare. I think for Group A, we were on the fence about Nightmare. We were like Gumiho and like maybe Nightmare or Lambo or Skillus. Like it was a little bit more up in the air there.
Yeah, we were all up in the air, and the only reason why I didn't predict Nightmare to go forward was because you did. You predicted Gumiho Nightmare, so I was like, well, I can't agree. I can't agree 100%, so I'll go with Gumiho Skillus. And Skillus didn't quite advance.
Yeah, Nightmare has been. But... Oh yeah, well, it was pretty close. And honestly, like we casted Skillus versus Nightmare, and the PvP Skillus look good, look strong.
I'm remembering now. I remember specifically, I was like, you know what, Nightmare, he's been doing really good these past couple of weeks. He's been informing. You were like, you know what, that's a good point. I'm gonna predict Gumiho Nightmare. I was like, God damn you. Well, stole my prediction from under me. Well, I'm gonna go Gumiho Skillus then, just to spite you.
No.
Who's laughing now?
I do remember though that Skillus is one of the players that was experiencing a lot of timeouts or a lot of latency issues during the group stage, and I know he was getting really frustrated. I know that I'm pretty sure that did impact some of his group performances as well. So that is kind of like an X factor that did maybe impact some of these
Yeah.
matches. But overall, Gumiho and Nightmare, they did make it out. As you mentioned, Nightmare has been looking really strong in the online tournaments, so we did expect him to do well.
Yeah. Not too surprising. Yeah, Group A is probably the one that pretty much, I would say, the least amount of upsets, or possibly even no upsets, depending on what you were predicting beforehand.
Mhm.
Before we jump into the other group, so I gotta say, we were kind of wondering about it. Geralt, he signed to a new team. Will he have the mustache? Well, no, because Skilla stole it.
He took his mustache. Oh no, we know where it went. So that did happen. Yes, the skills. He has been rocking some more facial hair recently. We have confirmation. When it came to Group B, as we kind of went over, it did come down to Spirit and Showtime, and Spirit did win that best of 3, and that's kind of what it really came down to between the two of them. And in the end, Spirit did take it in the end. That was really sad though to see that Showtime wouldn't be able to reprise his role in the playoffs. When it came to Group C, this is where another big upset happened.
Huge.
But
the big one for me.
oh yeah, big for a reason. Big Gabe.
Oh, Gabe, yeah. I remember specifically last week, I think I was saying there's no way Gabe makes it out of Group C. Even if he was on absolute fire, the other players would come in and just break his hand because they're like, you don't need that hand to make pizza, but you do need it to win. So it was getting up. Very, very impressive hero marine, being able to juggle both feeding literally everyone and also making it out of his group.
And drinking as well.
Yeah, true.
He was definitely a couple of drinks in while playing those matches, mate. Yeah. When it comes to Raynor here, this is also something that I don't think I want to say balance or anything like that. Just because from what I remember, seeing Raynor there in day 2, and I think he even said it himself, he was definitely not feeling himself.
Yep.
He was he said himself that he was just really tired, didn't get a lot of sleep, like he was not in form, or didn't feel in shape, didn't feel too good coming into his group, so he just wasn't at peak condition.
Yeah. And this time I would actually believe it. I feel like Raynor says this a lot, but nobody ever believes it because the last time he said that, he literally won the entire goddamn tournament. The last time he was at a HomeStory Cup and he was saying oh yeah, I'm feeling a bit jet lagged. I didn't really practice that much. We're in the off season, so I've been playing other games. I didn't really get to practice that much. Blah blah blah. I've been drinking as well. And we're coming into the second day, and so on and so forth. And then he literally wins the entire damn thing, not dropping a single map into playoffs. And it's like, well, Raynor, I'd love to believe you this time, but yeah, but this time, yeah, I actually believe him.
Yeah, for sure. Like he himself said that he just wasn't playing at his best. He just wasn't playing in good enough form to obviously contest against some of these other players. So on the one hand, on paper, this is an upset, and I do agree with that. But on the other hand, considering that and factoring that in, again, Raynor himself saying he just wasn't playing at his best and did bow out here in the group stage. It is a shame. Definitely would have been great to have seen some more Raynor action in the playoffs, but in the end, it did go the way of Big Gabe, and that led us into the playoffs. That led us into our 6 Terran, 1 Protoss, 1 Zerg quarterfinals.
Hell yeah! Thankfully we were spared the TVT finals. Well, I say spared. I'd in TVT now, but I actually went to bed before I was able to watch this, but it looked like it was a lot closer in the TVP between Gumiho and Clem than the TVT between the two of them was.
Yeah, I hope people don't take this away from Gumiho, because the reality is Clem, he is the #1 ranked Protoss in Europe, unironically. He's even higher ranked than Max. his Protoss is actually really good.
His PVT is better than his TVT, so
yes, unironically. So I do worry that some people look at this, and similarly to whenever they see Raynor play Protoss against Zerg, they're he's not taking it seriously. I think this is more indicative that he is taking it seriously, and I think we spoke about it.
This is a rematch.
Yeah, it is from the qualifier. For those who don't know, in the qualifiers, Clem did beat Gumiho with his Protoss. Even here, he took maps as well. He forced the ace match. Clearly,
absolutely.
Yeah, he did better than his Terran.
Yeah. Very fitting in the end that the trophy was Artanis then.
True. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. But there was a lot of hype though. There was a lot of hype when Clem rocked up with Protoss because the Twitch chat was so doomer about the lack of Protoss in the playoffs. So with Clem rocking up as Protoss, he was like the man of the people, and everyone got behind it, and it was very exciting, very hype. It would have been really cool to have seen him win, and force
I
the
think he
Super
was,
Ace match.
yeah, I
But
think he was even talking about it earlier, right? Where he was like, "Yeah, I've been to so many HomeStory Cups, but I haven't won one just yet. Freaking Yuna always
Mhm.
stops him. Yuna or Raynor always stops me before I can get to those finals. This time he made it to the finals, and yeah, unfortunately, he's not going to be winning a HomeStory Cup yet.
Mhm.
Segumiho
No,
going to be
no.
winning 2 consecutive ones.
Yeah, back-to-back wins there for Gumiho. When it comes to Cyril's performance against Cyril, he looked like Cyril. He looked very dominant, especially in his series against Spirit, especially in his series against Maru as well. As we have been accustomed to seeing Cyril versus Clem played out very similar to what we expect between those two
It-
players. We saw it at EWC, we saw it in WTL. Clem's more aggressive nature is definitely something that does set him
Mhm.
aside from the other Terrans out there, like Maru, like Spirit, and it is something that Cyril does struggle more against.
Yeah. I think somebody pointed out that it's a really interesting triangle that, well, I would I would say there's not enough data yet, specifically between Maru and Clem, but people are saying that there's a really interesting triangle that might be forming a little bit right now, where it's like Cyril dominates Maru. Maru, we haven't really seen him that much against Clem, so I wouldn't say that this is definitive, but going from looking at Maru's other TBTs and looking at Clem's TBT, you could probably possibly say that Maru beats Clem, but then Clem dominates Cyril, and so it like goes into a bit of a rock paper scissors.
Hmm. Yeah, we kind of had that, if you recall, with Raynor, where Clem he looks more dominant over Cyril, but Raynor looks a little
Yep.
bit more dominant over Clem. That obviously wasn't the case in this tournament, but Raynor does have like a stronger record against Clem in recent years compared to Cyril, for example. But again, that's all. It all just comes down to like stylistic tendencies and
Mm-hmm.
stylistic play. It is really cool to see that skill expression and
Yeah.
styles are still a thing in StarCraft, and players do play differently from each other.
Yeah.
Gumiho is another good example where he does his own thing more often than not. So it's really cool to see that there are those things that distinguish the players from each other.
Yeah. It's not just what unit counters the other unit or what strategy is good against this strategy or what have you, but like you said, the stylistic differences. If you're gonna, in Cyril's words, play like a mad lad as a Terran player, you're gonna get
Uh-huh.
stomped by him. He has
Yeah.
figured that out so hard. You cannot outsmart Cyril, so your only chance is to just flat out play faster, more accurate, more aggressive than him, which is something that Clem, I think, has distilled into a science.
Yeah, I think this is also something that
And
really
then,
frustrates me. Oh, go on.
and I was gonna say, but then on the flip side of that, since you have no hope of outplaying Clem, you can outsmart him like Raynor has, or
Uh-huh.
like MaxPax has, or potentially as Scooby-Ho has. I didn't get to see that series. I went to bed.
Mhm. I mean, it's one of those things where this is also something that really frustrates me regarding. I mean, you don't want to get dragged into the trenches when it comes to like Reddit comments or Twitch chat. But for people that are like, why doesn't Maru just like play more like
Just play
Clem or
like
something? Yeah, exactly. Or like, why doesn't
the
Clem play more
old.
like
That's an
Gumiho?
age-old meme.
True. Play
Just
like
play like so
Maru.
and
It's
so.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like they have their own styles, they have their own,
Yeah.
like they are their own
It.
individual like being. Like just
Yeah.
because one person plays one way doesn't mean that can be emulated necessarily by another player. They have their own tendencies, they have their own preferences.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's either, obviously because players have their own different strengths and weaknesses, right? One player might be super fast, and really
Mhm.
good at multitasking, but maybe not super good at say microing or unit control. I mean, that was pretty much innovation, right? Macro
Mhm.
machine, but not very good at micro. Whereas on the flip side of that, you have somebody like Björn, who for a while, at least in 2016, or I guess not so much 2016, but more 2017 in that era, people were criticizing that he would miss a macro cycle or something like that, but he flat out had the best unit control in the world at that point, so he was able to make up for those. Yes, technically, would have been a lot cleaner if they would have shored up, if they would have, you know, played in a different style, but they don't need to. They can still be very successful by, playing to their strengths and not just, playing to the meta or just
Mhm.
doing what theoretically is what is the best way to play. I think
Mhm.
again, I keep bringing this up, but Lambo mentioned a long time ago where he's always like a good build, or what he considers to be a good build, may not necessarily be the best thing for certain other players to go for. Like Lambo, he was saying, like, good. He defines a good build as a build that is very efficient, that it minimizes your own mistakes, that is, something that anybody can do. But the fact of the matter is, if you're a little bit better at catching your opponents off guard, if you're a little bit better at just exploiting the fights or exploiting terrain to your advantage, then maybe don't use a quote unquote good build and just play to your strengths. Which again is why he considers Dark to be such a good player, is because he does bad
Huh?
builds all the time,
He
or quote
does.
unquote bad builds all the time, but they're builds that just play to his strengths. So
Mhm.
yeah, he's just able to win so often with them.
For sure, for sure. This is like a bit of a concept that can sometimes be hard to to express to someone, especially if they don't watch a lot of StarCraft as well. Is that kind of like player expression in the game and how different they are from each other. That's also something that I do love about the players and love about the game itself.
Mhm.
Is that so many of them are so different from each other as well. And we
Yeah.
see that when it comes to the top players in the world, when it comes to even these players that
It-
we see here, Maru, Gumiho, Clem, and Cyril.
yeah. I think Fear Dragon, long time ago, also, mentioned that you can probably extrapolate a lot about a player's personality just by watching how they play. And I
Hey, good.
100% think that's true. Well, it's not always true, sometimes you'll have somebody very. I'm trying to think of. Oh god, who was this player who was like in game? They were like super aggressive, super like in your face, very light, very had a very like dynamic play style, but then out of game they were just like stoned all the time, just like, hey, yeah, how you doing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can go the other way with that, right? Where that's how they express themselves, right? Like in the game, as opposed
True.
to like their
Yeah.
actual IRL personality. That's kind of like an avenue for that sort of thing. There's definitely a lot to get into that when it comes to like the psychology of a player. Um, but yeah, coming into the event itself here, in the end, congratulations to Gumiho is able to pull it off. Clem's still amazing player, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But alas,
Uh.
falling here in the TVTs, which is his weakest matchup. Even he
Mhm.
himself has expressed that. He himself has admitted that. Still a very strong player in his own right. Don't want to take away from that clearly at all. But Gumiho, he was able to rock and really rely on
Mhm.
his TVT. I'll be honest, like if Gumiho had faced Cyril early on, I think would have had a little bit more trouble. But he was stuck on the TVT side of the bracket, so he was able to TVT his way through into the finals, and yeah, looking good.
Yeah, very much so. Congratulations to, once again, all hail our Gumi god,
Yeah.
the most stylistic Terran player by a mile, or has always been known for being the most stylistic Terran player out there, and yeah, continues to prove that you don't have to play like Innovation, you don't have to play like Björn in order to be successful in this game. And he himself said that was his goal in his WCS signature series. He himself was like
Mhm.
mentioning that, where he's like, he wants to be a champion, obviously, but he doesn't want to just be a guy who copies others and
Mhm.
who is just successful by copying others.
Yeah, yeah, and he does often come up with his own builds, like straight up. Just
Mhm.
comes up with his own builds, comes up with his own styles. That can be also why he can be quite difficult to deal with, especially in certain matchups as well. So congratulations here to Gumiho. When it comes to the overall bracket, the overall standings, I know a lot of people are using this to definitely bring up things
Oh yes.
like balance and the patch. And I do agree, there are a lot of
I've seen a
problems with the
couple.
patch. Yeah, there's a lot of problems with the patch. There's a lot of problems with the direction of the patch. I mean, we just spoke about, the direction of the patch and the map pool and all that stuff, and how there's a lot wrong that's happening there, or there's a lot that could be improved 100%. But when it comes to the player representation here, I do think that's, I mean, it just comes down to which players were not also invited to
Yeah.
this event. We spoke about it for when it
Yeah.
comes to Zerg representation. The Korean
I
Zergs weren't here, and the group stage was really brutal. For Showtime and Reina not to make it out is not
Mhm. I
inconceivable considering only top two.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think if you watch the games and you looked
Yeah.
at how they played out, especially some of the non-mirror matchups and how they played out, there is a lot you can extrapolate from that. You can kind of
Hmm.
make a couple of predictions of how the meta is going to be shifting in the coming months, and maybe it take down some notes to specifically look at some unit interactions and be like, okay, this is likely to become a problem once more players figure it out in the future, so and so. But I'm just gonna say, I feel like a lot of people who were complaining didn't actually watch the games themselves, just looked at the
Yeah.
bracket and just went, "Oh yeah, Terran domination. No, obviously balance council. They don't know what they're doing. It's just so and so." And it's like, well, actually, if you really scrutinize the players who were invited, you really scrutinize the group stage itself and how brutal it is. It's not that surprising.
It isn't. It isn't. What I will say though is I am going to be really curious as to what does occur during MC8, Masters Coliseum.
Yep.
Masters Coliseum is not going to have the restrictions of being at the event offline. Because it's online,
Mhm.
we should be seeing the best of the best. We should be seeing
Yep.
Hero, we should be seeing Serral, Rainer, Maru, Max Pax, Dark, Solar. Everyone who's anyone is going to be at Masters Coliseum. And because on top of that, if you remember, group stage is round robin. So we have
Yep.
round robin with all these top players. I think that is going to tell
And
us a lot more about the state of the game.
absolutely.
And
And it's
then
going
we
to
can get the
be not
pitchforks
as
out.
exactly. I was going to say, and it's not going to be as brutal in the group stage either.
Mhm.
I would predict probably not going to be as many players in each group. I mean, 6 players per group is a little bit out there. Is a little bit out of the ordinary. So I would imagine it's going to be a classic 4 to 5 player group round robin, and then top 2 advance, and then maybe third player is relegated to a knockout bracket or something like that. Because, like you said, all online. They don't have to worry about time. They don't have to worry about like, oh, the
I mean,
flex
it's
coming
a
up. We
2-month
have to
event.
do what you want. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
They have all the time in
it's
the world to just
it's-
really let things to not rush anyone. You know.
yeah. For those who don't know, and I'm sure we'll get into it later on, but Masters Coliseum, it starts tonight, and it's going to be every weekend until like late January. But every weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 3
Until
days
Lunar New
straight.
Year, yeah.
StarCraft. Oh yeah, yeah. So there's going to be a lot of StarCraft there. As you mentioned, it's an online big major event. A lot of money on the line, of course, and all the best players are going to be there. And yeah, I am definitely really curious about the state of things because I do feel like there is some validity when it comes to the criticisms, when it comes to the patch,
Yep.
when it comes to the map pool, when it comes to the state of things. I don't know if you can, again, extrapolate too much from this event, but I am going to be putting a lot more weight in Masters Coliseum in the coming 2 months.
Yeah. Just sharpen your pitchforks, but don't get them out yet. You know, that's all I'll say. There'll be
For
time.
sure.
There'll be time for that. Trust me.
For
There
sure.
will be lots of time for that.
Mate,
But
there's
just not right now.
as a bit of a teaser to that, mate, and we'll get into Elima League later, but yo, I don't know if you saw, we casted Homeowner versus Rogue. There's a change that happens in the patch that we kind of glossed over. That I'll be honest, it didn't really hit me. It didn't really hit me until I've been watching some of these games, whether it's Elima League, whether it's even here at HomeStory Cup. Mate, the old Cyclone. We
Oh yeah.
we may have a problem here. Like, there's a reason why we got rid of the we have regressed, Yaku. Look, I need to sit you down, Yaku. We have regressed. We have with the old Cyclone, mate. I have seen now a couple of Protoss players, now some Zerg players die to mass Cyclone. it's
So what you're saying
yeah.
is we need to go further back.
Oh no.
We need to go further back.
We
from
need to
when-
move
from-
forward.
We need to go further back to Harder to Swarm,
Oh
where we
no.
just don't have the Cyclone. I support this one. I
that's-
support this full-heartedly. Get rid of the Cyclone.
Let's
Get it out of the
go.
game.
Let's
Replace it
go.
with the maybe not the science vessel. Replace it with the vulture. There we go.
Mhm. Aye.
Get rid of
So,
Cyclone.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it. But with that does conclude HomeStory Cup. And again, just a really fun event, really nice vibes as well. Do recommend checking out the VODs. I myself, I'm going to check out some of these VODs as well because, as you can imagine, we were live covering the event on the B stream, which means I didn't get to see a single game on the main stream during the group stage. So I didn't get to watch Rainer versus Hero Marine. I didn't get to watch Spirit versus Showtime. I do want to tune into those matches. Definitely does have my interest. Same with you did mention Maru and Gumiho. We were casting. Wait, were we
Maru and
casting
Spirit.
yeah.
Maru and Spirit was a highlight
Mhm.
for me. That was
Yeah.
that was a highlight of me. That was another one that was similarly very close. They had a game on not Snowpiercer. They changed it to a different name, but the snow map. At this point, they had another game there that similarly to Maru versus Young on Ultra Love.
Mhm.
Spirit was just straight up ahead for like a solid 10-15 minutes or something like that, but then Maru just double expanded, doubled down, and then ground the game down to a halt and came back and won it. And it's like, what the shit? How is this possible? Why can't I play like that?
I'll tune in, Bobby. I'll tune in. Also, unironically, I see Pigeon Rents in the chat. I think that's basically what it is, mate. They slipped in that patch notes, like in the patch, like, oh, we're reverting the cyclone, hoping no one would notice because we forgot. Bobby, we forgot. We forgot why we got rid of it. We they thought we wouldn't notice, and we didn't notice, mate. We didn't notice what happened. But with that,
Well,
that is.
I would argue that I remember specifically the rationale they gave the last time they removed it was because they wanted to encourage more Cyclone play. Specifically, they wanted to encourage more Cyclone play, and they wanted the Cyclone to be more like a Marine. I remember that specifically being the rationale they gave, so that's the reason why they removed it. It was just it was just a pleasant side effect.
To
a lot of unpleasantness in TBT.
For sure. But with that, we can go over some of this week's events here. We can put HomeStory Cup behind us. We do, or I might have some plans to go over and cast some more of the group matches for HomeStory Cup, depending on if our schedule opens up. But again, our schedule is very packed over the next couple of weeks, so we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. For now, though, we're going in. For sure. For now, we're going into potentially the final Hyper One event. Period.
At least until the next. Well, no, he did mention that he wants to continue doing stuff for internal events, right?
I think he was.
I could have misread that as well. I could have misread that. Okay. Well, regardless, very potentially the final Hyper One event until the next season of StarCraft Evolution. But I could be mistaken about here, Light. I'm glad to see that since it is going to be the final one, it's expanded a little bit. I don't remember there being this extensive of a group stage the last time we covered it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long event.
Playoff stage, I misspoke. Playoff. This long of a playoff bracket is what I meant.
Yeah. I don't think I noticed the playoff bracket last time either. So as you mentioned, it's huge. Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Going out with a bang.
Yeah, so a very large playoff bracket. So he's getting the most out of these players, mate. And the group stage still has a ways to go, though. Still very much still a ways to go. The group is slowly progressing. We expect Homono to be making it out for sure. I think Group B is a little bit more up in the air. I think Group B, the players are maybe a little bit closer in skill. So I'm really curious to see who makes it out. And we'll see how much money Hyper One saves because he's also playing as well.
True. He has to win. Yeah, once again, nice to see the Swiss brothers together. And I think because of how much the bracket has expanded, I think everybody makes it to the playoffs. It's just, it's just going to be affecting seeding and which position.
Yeah. Which, again, is a really nice, fun way to host an event because it means that everyone gets to play matches even more so as well.
Yeah. Especially one that is a bit more in-house, where it's more that, you want to be fostering more talent or more, shall we say, community or camaraderie amongst their players. So, really good way of doing it.
For sure. That does lead us into the StarCraft 2 finished event. There's a Finnish regional that has been taking place with some of the best players in Finland. I say some of the best because Cyril is going to be casting, not competing in this tournament.
Yeah, as is Wellmu.
True. It was his birthday, like yesterday, I think.
Oh, I forgot about that.
There you go. So happy birthday to Wellmo, of course, one of the OGs, a competitor way back when, especially in Heart of the Swarm. Do love to see him once again. But it looks like the group stage has been progressing. The group stage, I should say, is done, and the playoff bracket is progressing as well. So a lot of matches are being played out. Players are being seeded as we speak. Mixu did make it through, Zugelang as well. To make things a little bit fair, because the skill level is a little bit lower, it looks like Mixu is deciding to off-race in this tournament.
Gonna be playing Terran instead of his typical race of Zerg. Which again makes sense, like you was mentioning. Mixu is, I would rank him to be the number 2 player in Finland right now, behind Cyril, obviously. It's a little. Zhuge unfortunately, isn't really active anymore. Neither is Demu Zero or Wellmu. So I think by default, you kind of have to give it to Mixu, right? But even though it is by default, he definitely is worthy of that title. He is a very good rising talent.
Yeah, which is why I'm excited to see how this tournament plays out, because on the one hand, again, if Mixu, if he played his main race, 100% he would win this tournament. 100% he would come out as a champion. But because he's off racing, then suddenly maybe he can bleed here against some of these other players. I mean, Mixu, he, I think, has already dropped a map in the group stage. He dropped a map to Jutsu. So again, if he can drop a map, then maybe he can drop a series. So I want to believe that that some of these players can threaten his off race.
Oh, that's where, okay. They're going to be, if you can drop a map, you can drop and die or something.
Excuse me. So, not where I was going with it, but sure.
Kick or something. It's an old saying goes, right? Old back in the team houses, in the KT team house, you drop a map, you drop out of the house. We're kicking you, we're throwing you out the window.
Oh my god!
You drop to the ground floor.
Yeah, there you go. Give him 20.
Yeah.
And wash the dishes.
Yeah. And then go to the army.
Oh boy. But yeah, so with that, best of luck to Mixu, Zhuge and all the other competitors in this Finnish event. Again, it will conclude within the next week or so. So we will have some updates in the next podcast, as the end date is the 7th of December.
Yeah. Once again, Demu Zero, I know we're hyping up Mixu a lot, we're hyping up Zhuge Liang, and I'm especially curious as to what Mixu's Terran is capable of, but Demu Zero, man, he, once again, going back to these stylistic players, when he was on Team Finland, he may not have been the strongest player, but he was definitely a very entertaining one, and one who was very exciting to watch. He would take big risks, and they didn't always pay off, but when they did, oh man, it was hilarious.
For sure. So best of luck. I'm sure we'll see him in the playoffs. I'm sure we'll see him I mean, he's already, I believe, seeded in. Based on those results he's been getting.
Quarterfinals, I believe. Yeah.
So best of luck again. That will conclude over the weekend. Up next, we have the Sunrise Cup 187. We have our regulars competing here. We have Nanami, we have Number, we have Smile, Oriana. They do make their way through.
Just to clarify.
True, not the Peruvian Smile, not the other one, not the Llama Boy. And in the end, once again, it's not the first time he has taken a win here. We have taken note of him before. Nanyu gets the 3-0 over Nanami.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in there before you tried to translate again, because you always get it wrong.
I'm pretty sure that's melon.
You keep saying that every time. You're like,
melon.
I'm pretty sure it means melon,
or
right?
Fish. Either melon or fish. Wait, no, I'm remembering now. That's fish. So it's something fish? It's melon fish. Fish melon.
No.
Something fish. I'm pretty sure melon is involved somewhere, but fish, at least. That one, 100%. I'm locking it in. Fish.
Oh, God.
It's something fish.
Sure. Regardless,
I remember things.
I don't know if I trust you, Yaku. Does take down Oriana 2-1. Does go to the ace match, and does take down Nanami 3-0 as well. So congratulations here to our lovely Chinese Dirk player. Again, this is not the first time he's won a Sunrise Cup. He is a lesser known player. Doesn't even have an English ID, but he has been getting better and better results over the past couple of months. So it's been great to see him pop in.
He has an English ID. It's fish something. Something fish.
Whatever you say. As from here, we do, oh my god, get into something a little bit different here. We do have a show match, Fairy Cup number 11. We don't really get these too often. I want to say maybe once a month, if that. I mean, there's only been 3 this year, so they're quite sporadic, I should emphasize, in when they are held. But there was a best of 7 show match between Xian and Psionic.
Yes, and I mean, a very close series in the end here. Did go all the way to the ace match, but a little bit of an upset here. Zaun was the player who lost Psionic, a player who has popped up every now and then. Plays,
Yeah.
played in Basilisk Big Brain Bouts. You see him quite a bit in open qualifiers for things, but yeah, again, not super active. Doesn't seem to be a full-time pro. Managed to take the series 4-3.
Yeah, I'm very much so in shock here because Psionic, as you mentioned, he's a player that's kind of in the middle of the pack in Europe. Like he's,
Right.
competitive with sometimes players like Spats, for example. Because he's taken like maps here and there off of a laser. He's going toe to toe with Milky Cow. Like, that's kind of the level of play that we expect from him. So for him to defeat Zound, especially considering this is a Zound that is currently in form, I would say. Like Zound has been
Yeah.
looking quite strong in recent weeks. For him to go down to Psionic, I'm a little bit in shock. GG.
Very impressed. Yeah. Very well played. Very well played indeed. For those of you who are wondering what exactly the Little Fairy Cup is, like we were mentioning, it is a series of show matches, but it is one that specifically features a player from the team Little Fairy against whoever they can, whoever they can schedule to play a show match against, I suppose. So in this case, Psionic is the player from Little Fairy, and I'm gonna be honest, I actually didn't realize that he joined Little Fairy, but yeah, it's good to see that Little Fairy, they are a bit more international compared to a lot of the other Chinese teams, and yeah, it's nice to see that they are expanding beyond kind of Asia and the CIS region and a little bit more into Europe.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't know that he was on Little Fairy either. I just checked he joined earlier this year in June. So a relatively recent new pickup here. To be fair, we weren't hosting the podcast back then, so we weren't able to cover the player transfer. Otherwise, we would have been all over that. Yeah, GG, well played. Congratulations here to Psionic. Definitely bodes well for things to come. And I mean, if he's playing in these show matches, I hope to see more of him in future online cups. Definitely now has my attention, for sure.
Yeah, without a doubt. Oh! I'm getting support in the chat. Hell yeah, Pigeon.
I don't think.
Hell yeah, Pigeon Wrench. Melonfish.
Oh, no. Oh,
That's
no.
the alias. Get out of here with your Johns and your Does. What even are deer? We already have a deer. He retired. We don't need no John Does. Melonfish. That's what we're gonna call him.
I'll get someone to translate it for us later. As we do next have
I'm translating it for you already.
No, you're not.
Waste time.
We have the Little League Cup number 33.
I gotta be honest, Light. I don't want to cover this one. I feel like we have to protest.
I
Where's
agree.
our graphic?
So for those that are curious, every single week we cover the Little League Cup, and every single week we have some very inspirational and very dedicated graphics that are made for each week's show match. But it looks like this time there is no graphic.
Shaking my head. Well,
that's the only reason why we cover this event.
Why? What else would there be? I mean, to be fair, we've had this matchup before, Dark versus Oliveira. Same result as well, Oliveira winning in the ace match. But I think you know what? Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm going to defend Luli a little bit. Because you know what? They've run out of archive. They've run out of pictures of Dark, I think. They've already had Baby Dark back when he was in SKT. They've already had Papi Dark when he grew out the goatee, or Evil Dark, shall we say. Punish Dark, that's, I think, the term we use for him. Punish Dark after he grew out the goatee and joined Dragon Kaizi Gaming. We don't have a Talon Dark, but let's be real, Talon Dark's just... Talon Dark is redeemed Dark. Dark after he became a father and was no longer punished.
Dark after Dark.
Or is he being more punished? After Dark, that's what we should call him. So you know what? I'll defend Luli a little bit here, but I'm not happy about the fact that I have to defend them.
No, I'm not going to defend them because you know what? They might be running out of photos. They might be running out of player pictures. That doesn't stop them the past 2 weeks. But they've been using screenshots for Oliveira, okay, with like cropped out like chairs in the background with like weird green screen. Like they've just been taking
a screenshot from WTL of Dark in the dungeon.
They could have
Darkest dungeon.
Yeah,
we call it.
We do. Where he's like got the strap in the background where he ties people up. Like, mate, they could have done something with that, and it would have been beautiful. But what happened? Where's the screenshot?
You know what happened? Dark became a dad, and he had to baby-proof the dungeon.
Got to baby-proof the dungeon. Oh no! Oh no! The things we do to make a family. I feel for Doc. I feel for him. Regardless,
Sacrifices we made.
the sacrifices made. As we had our best of 7 here between Dark and Oliveira. As you mentioned, Oliveira has been looking very, very in form as of late. It is a big shame. Oliveira's another one actually. That I just realized Oliveira, another player that of course wasn't at HomeStory Cup, wasn't able to travel, but another very strong competitor right now. He is very much so in form. We've seen Oliveira take down Hero, Dark, the best of the best players out there have fallen into the hands of Oliveira over the past couple of months. And I want to see more of him. I feel like Oliveira, he's not as active in these online open cups, so I'm craving some Oliveira. I'm looking forward to it in Masters Coliseum.
Yeah. In Masters Coliseum, which, I mean, they haven't announced anything, but you know, the speculation is that they're going to try to have at least some segment of it offline, whether it's the entire playoffs or semis and finals.
We'll see. We'll see what comes of the playoffs of Masters Coliseum. But regardless, congratulations to Oliveira. I did go all the way to the ace match. Did go all the way to game 7. So very, very clutch best of 7 in the end. Barely going the way of Oliveira here. And with that, that leads us into the Player Open Cup 6, the Vietnamese only tournament.
Yeah. Before that, I just checked. Luli Cup 25 was the earliest instance of Oliveira versus Dark in Luli Cup.
There you go.
That's when we had Dark in the SKT Windbreaker.
Yeah. Baby Dark.
Baby Dark.
But here we here we had our Vietnamese events. Of course, we had Lam Dui going undefeated, 2-0s his opponent, 3-0 in the final as well.
Yes, huge result here for Lamjui, not to be confused with Jackie.
Not to be confused with Pleiades.
Yeah. Not to be confused with no, I think those are the ones, yeah. Well, yeah, EBG. I don't think anybody confuses EBG with anyone else.
They don't. They really don't. They really don't.
They don't. Yeah. He is, for better or worse.
But yeah, Lamjoy coming into this is the highest rated player, so he's coming in as the favored player here. Shout out to Pete Imba, EBG, Dink, all competing for that. Alas, couldn't quite stop him in the end, and with that is this week's champion.
Yeah. Very nicely done here, very well played. I mean, it's been a while since... I'll have to admit this, Light, it's been a while since I have really kept up with the Vietnamese scene, but... Based on my recollection, this is probably the expected result here.
Yeah. Lamjoy is definitely...
Yeah, I believe he is the most active, and yeah, he plays a lot in Hyper One's tournaments as well, so...
For sure. I mean, he's on the team. He's on Hyper One. And speaking of Vietnamese players, we might be seeing one of them later on tonight, by the way, as I believe Mia Micah did sign up for the Asia qualifier for MC number 8. So we could be seeing some more Vietnamese action. Just saying.
Hell yeah.
I haven't casted Mia Micah in too long. I want some. I'm craving some cat, some Mia.
Ooh. Get the foe in ya.
There we go. This does lead us into another regional, but from a different part of the world, from Europe, of course, as we have our Brazilian bi-weekly tournament, Code for Giants Cup number 16, where unfortunately I was not able to cast. This was yesterday morning, if I recall correctly. Usually here on the CranKy Ducklings, we do cover this event, but alas, due to just League and recording and scheduling, and just didn't have the time to cast this, unfortunately. And my heart goes out to Eric, because this the 1 week we don't cast Eric, he doesn't make it even to the finals.
Oof,
boy.
He needed you. He needed you there.
It's my fault. It is my fault. I'll take that one. I'll take it. Feels bad, man. But yeah, interesting. We had the return of Shakti, aka Nano. Shakti did return, did go down to Eric here in the quarterfinals. But Eric, he went to the ace match against Inexorable. Again, Inexorable has been a rising star in the Brazilian scene for quite some time. And they did go back and forth, and this time Inexorable did bring Eric down.
Yeah. look to be a little bit more in form. I was going to say, Inexorable, there's no shame losing to Inexorable, I would say. He is, now that Kelzer is still living in Norway, Inexorable, I would say, is the best Terran player in Brazil currently. And like you mentioned, is just starting to be a bit of a rising star. We're kind of getting that triumvirate in Brazil of Eric, Inexorable, and I want to say Master, typically.
Yeah. I would agree. I would say that those are the best of each respective race in Brazil. Speaking of, Master did go undefeated, not dropping a single map in this tournament. We have seen Inexorable bring Master down before, but not this time. Master, he was in form. He was upset. Fun fact: last Code for Giants Cup, Master, if you remember, he actually got knocked out early on in the quarterfinals. This is a rematch. Last time, he actually got 2-0'd by Allison. Allison PvP'd and cheesed the hell out of him.
I
Knocked him
remember
out.
that.
He knocked him out real early on, and this time he got his revenge.
Hell yeah.
Oh.
That always feels good.
For sure. As Master does take the win here. Again, he is the strongest Protoss player in Latin America currently. So especially since Shakti is less active, Paku Mike did retire. So Master has kind of risen up as the Protoss dominant force in Latin America. So he's the one to beat. And unfortunately, this week, Inexorable couldn't quite take the map. But this leads us into
The Manap?
The Manap. Could not take the Manap.
Yeah.
But this does lead us into another show match, another best of 7.
Another rematch, as a matter of fact. Supers 7, number 21, did take place this week between Oliveira and Trap, which I'm going back here and looking through, is a rematch from a pretty recent Luli Cup, from what I remember. Luli Cup number 29, which is a couple of weeks ago. In that tournament, Oliveira, I don't want to say dominated Trap, but did take a very convincing series 4-1. This time, though, Trap got his revenge, beats Oliveira 4-2. What a difference a graphic makes. Having a good graphic makes.
I mean, hold on. That's a new photo for Trap. I haven't seen that photo before. Yeah, that's the Genji uniform.
That's in the Genji yeah.
Wait, was Trap at EWC? No, sure.
He wasn't. He came back from the military too late.
When was this photo taken? Was this photo taken for this show match?
Well, I don't think it was just for the show match. I think it was just one of those promotional things that the team does, Where like, yeah, here's our promotional pictures. Feel free to... We're going to use them for our promo graphics, but also tournament organizers, feel free to use them as well.
You know what?
If you need.
You know what? Yaku, you almost got me. Yaku, you almost got me. You almost got me with that one. You're like, oh yeah, for team, promotional. Yeah, that makes sense. Hold up.
Oh? What are we holding?
You know what they did? They slipped into Gemini's DMs. They're like, yo, we need a photo here for our graphic. Gemini's like, yo, how many photos do you want, mate? I got you.
He was like, yo, how many photos you got? He sent them like 5,000, and then they sent him a message back, and we're like, we actually need him with the jersey on and not shirtless.
No. Oh no. And that's when Gemini got them in contact with his team, because Gemini did not have a photo. Trap with his jersey. Oh no. Too real. But that's I haven't seen that photo before. I haven't seen Trap in that in the jersey, so he's looking good. Yeah.
Crossed arms, pretty good. A little bit. I guess it doesn't count as a crop. It's just that the top of the graphic cuts out a little bit, but it's all right. I mean, it's better than just cutting a chunk of his hair out.
True. Big little cup. True. Again, talking about the matches themselves. Again, it's great to see that Trap did take down Oliveira. As you mentioned, Oliveira, this is a bit of a revenge series for Trap. And once again, it shows how competitive a lot of these players are. Where 1 week Oliveira can defeat Trap, the next week or even a couple weeks later, the reverse does occur. So even though you do see one player take another down, they do go back and forth in series, and it just goes to show just how competitive they are to each other.
Yeah, definitely very, very close. And typically, as it typically happens, it really comes down to who is in form on that day itself, and in this case, it was Trap.
Hmm? Oh yeah. In this case, it was Trap. Also, yes, I did just double check, and this is the player photo of Genji Esports when he joined the team. He joined the
There
team.
we go. Yeah,
There you go. Yeah, yeah. So cool that Gemini got them
Gemini.
in touch with
Yeah.
with,
Gem-
with the team.
Gemini. Oh, that's very good. I thought you were gonna be like, oh yeah, Gemini. He sent a picture of Trap over to Genji, and Genji just photoshopped a jersey over
No.
him.
It's also possible. That could have happened. That could have happened. Aye, aye, aye. But with that, Trap does take it in the end over Oliveira, and that leads us into this week's OSC King of the Hill.
Indeed, and one of the more chaotic ones that we've seen in a while. I mean, I think last week we were mentioning how, like, the crown changed hands 3 or 4 times. This time, we had usurpations. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Jesus.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 times out of 15 matches. 11 kings out of 15 matches. That is, I don't want to say unprecedented because I think we did have a King of the Hill previously that went all the way to like 14 or something like that, but
Yeah.
this one was. We didn't have a king for a very long time.
Yeah. So just to put things into context, OSC King of the Hill is a King of the Hill style format where if you win a game and if you keep winning, you stay on. You only get knocked out once you drop a best of one. And looking at this week, players they only had 2 wins at the most. That was the max here for
Yep.
any player was 2 wins.
Yeah,
Great.
shout out to Geralt, Quanta, Christianer, and Nicoract for being able to hold on to their throne for more than one series. But even still, after that, we still have Baby Marine, Demi, Jumi, Mixu, Moja, Rebellion, and Shameless all taking wins as well. I mean,
Mhm.
the defending champion in Han Mono got knocked out in the very first series. Wait, is that correct? I don't think that's
Moja,
correct.
Moja, Moja.
Moja. Yeah, the defending champion was Moja.
Mhm.
And he was able to hang on a little bit, but immediately got knocked out in the second match. So
Yeah. As you said, sometimes this happens. A very chaotic King of the Hill this week where you barely had any kind of win streak really going. But that's always a lot of fun as well. I mean, this, it's both, it goes both ways, right? Where it's really cool to see one player go on a massive win streak and have that win streak broken by another, or to have something like this
yo,
where like everyone's just taking everyone down. Like it's just
yeah,
just brutal.
it wasn't OSC King of the Hill. It was Shoutcraft Clan Wars. But I remember specifically one of the very first series that I was watching that really got me into one of the very first Kings of the tournaments or King of the Hill tournaments that really got me into competitive StarCraft was a Shoutcraft King of the Hill, where it was Nurchio going on like a 10 or 12 game win streak or something like that, and then at the very end, Innovation comes in, knocks him out, goes to bed, and then he comes back the next week as the defending champion.
Yeah, good times, good times. Yeah, it happens. It does happen, and it can be a really hype moment as well. So yeah, with that, Geralt is this week's OSC King of the Hill. He will be invited for the next edition of this tournament. And yeah, just a wild event. Shout out to Steadfast, of course, for covering this week's OSC King of the Hill.
Oh yeah. Crazy one as well.
Meanwhile, that leads us into another OSC event. OSC number 2, where we finally have some progression. We've been waiting a long time, but MaxPax versus Beyond finally came to a
boy,
head.
and ooh, I didn't watch this, but yeah, this was the result. Beyond, who in
Yeah.
Beyond has had his moments against MaxPax. He has been able to win a couple of series in these offline events, but I think just looking at the overall record, typically MaxPax does have a bit of a lead on Beyond over there. But yeah, coming into this, I was expecting this to be a little bit more one-sided from the side of MaxPax, but Beyond able to make a series out of it.
For sure, for sure. I mean, Beyond forcing the ace, as you mentioned, we have even casted Beyond defeat Max Specs, but it's one of those things where it's more of a rarity, right? Like it happens every now and then. But Max Specs is still the heavy favorite. To see this go all the way to game 5 is exciting to see. Max Specs does take the win, but it also does leave the door open that if they have a rematch, Beyond can get his revenge.
Yeah, Bjorn can off race.
uh no. He could. He could off race. He could maybe get some coaching from Gumiho. He could whip out the mass cyclone. It's possible. It's possible. We'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, it looks like we had some updates here in the lower half of the bracket as well. Geralt and Shen went all the way to the ace match.
Ooh.
Nightmare 3-0'd Geralt. We had Shin take down Skillus. And it looks like we still have some remaining matches here. Mana versus Shin into Nightmare into Bjorn into Max Packs.
Yeah, Shin obviously going to be the heavy favorite coming into this, I would say, but at least until Bjorn. But Nightmare has definitely gone on quite a tear so far against any player not named Max Pax.
Mhm.
Nightmare has looked very convincing. So yeah, that could definitely throw a bit of a wrench in my prediction of Shin moving forward there. And of course, Mana. I mean, we cannot. I mean, they even talked about this a little bit at HomeStory Cup. Mana, he has looked stronger than he has in a very long time. I think really the last time we've seen Mana be this in form was 2018 Dallas, when he made it all the way to the finals against Cyril.
Mhm.
It's been a while, but Mana, he's getting back. He's getting back into form, and while he might not have made it out of his group at HomeStory Cup, and I mean, he definitely has a very tough opponent in Shin over here. I always gotta root for him, man. I always gotta, us old guys, we gotta stick together.
Oh yeah, yeah. What do you mean, us old guys? What do you
I
mean by
need-
that,
do
yeah?
I
What
need
are
to
you
show
trying
my
to say?
walking stick?
True, true.
Do I need to bring up my walking stick again here? It's like,
Feels bad,
actually
man.
picky.
Feels bad.
Actually, I'm
But
picky. Yeah.
until then, though, I do have a question for you here, Yaku.
Yes.
First things first, the trifecta of Koreans here is indicative of the most active Koreans in the online tournament scene. We have been hyping them all up. I'm referring to specifically Shin, Nightmare, and Beyond. They play in everything. They've been improving a lot. There's a reason why coming into HomeStory Cup, even we did expect Nightmare to do quite well, even amongst some of these other, otherwise more popular players. So, do you think we don't get a Max Pax versus Beyond rematch in the finals here? Do you think? I mean, I would say that it is. I can see a world where either Shin, Nightmare, or Beyond make it to the finals. But if you had to lock in an answer, who would it be? And of course, Mana is an X factor as well. Who makes it against Max Pax?
I'm gonna say Nightmare.
Oh, okay.
It's gonna be tough, obviously. Gonna be facing either Mana, Shin, or Bjorn, although Nightmare already beat Mana over the weekend, so I think I would predict Nightmare to beat Mana, and I mean, I think mostly I'm locking in my prediction mostly just out of bias, whether you want to call it recency bias or whether you want to call it Nightmare was at HomeStory Cup, so I want to favor him here, no matter, regardless of what logic and data would indicate. But yeah, I'm feeling Nightmare. I'm feeling Nightmare in my gut and in my heart.
Okay.
And obviously, logically speaking, in my brain, it's also what you said. Nightmare can absolutely beat Shin and can absolutely beat Bjorn. Whether he's likely to or not, we'll see. But he's done it before. He can 100% do it again. It's all about how informed they are on the day itself.
For sure. Like that's the thing about these three or these set of players here is I don't think that there's necessarily a wrong answer whatsoever. It's just just some fun predictions here for who will make it on to face off against Max Pax. I'm gonna go for just to be different, Yaku. It's my turn to be different.
Oh,
I'll look in Shin. I'll look in Shin. I'll be honest. I haven't seen as much of Shin over the past 2 weeks, so not feeling as confident with that pick. But I want to believe. I want to believe in.
And that's when he's at his strongest, right? When you don't know what he's cooking.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know what kind of spices are in that ramen.
Yeah. That's when he's at his most dangerous.
Exactly. Gotta get that black label ramen out. as Shin Mana, Nightmare Beyond, Max X are all going to be facing off. Again, we'll get some updates over the course of the next couple of weeks, and maybe even the next month, in the conclusion of the mid-season playoffs.
Indeed, we shall.
Up next,
Watch
we
it,
have...
Mana.
Let's go. I mean, I'll be all for it. I'll be all for it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Let's go. I'm here for the hype mana train. As here we jump into something a little bit different, something a little bit special. Here we have the Pigosaur Protoss Cup number 9. That's a lot of PvP, Poppy. That's what we expect from an online tournament. Huh?
Ooh,
let's go.
And I know Kilar Steadfast Cup has gone on hiatus, but the spirit of KFC Cup lives on here in Pigosaur. The spirit of Protoss lives on.
There you go. Does live. I mean, again, online tournaments are usually dominated by Protoss players. There's quite a lot of them that do compete in these events, and you get to see that here in the Pigosaur Cup as well.
I mean, they're the ones who need the online events, right? I mean, the Terran and Zerg players, they've already got their winnings from the offline events. They don't have to. They don't have to sign up week after week after week.
Copium. But yeah, for this event, I did, if you recall, I did just mention how I haven't seen as much from Shin over the past 2 weeks. You can see here, no Shin. There's no Shin. There's some less Zerg representation in general. Shout out to Sue. I was pleasantly surprised to see Sue return. It's been a while since we've seen him in one of these tournaments.
Yeah, I feel like the last time I casted Sue was in Dallas earlier this year, the Dallas knockout brackets, and I've seen him around every now and then in some of the, not necessarily the OSC stuff, but in qualifiers and some of the other online tournaments, big online tournaments and that. But yeah, not so much in the weeklies, which is what my short memory tends to cling on to.
Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, he has been active as much in the weeklies. I don't think I've casted Sue for like a couple of months at this point. So good to see him back. Great to see him return. I think maybe last time I casted him was like October, maybe September. But yeah, did go down to Max Packs here. Max Packs going on a tear. We have the non-stop PvPs. Shout out to Australia. Every single week we have to have Australia versus Beyond at some point. Usually they face off in the semis or the finals. This time they face off in the quarterfinals. It was a very fun, very close series. They often go back and forth. It's great to see the two of them. They do duke it out quite often here. But in the end, Max Packs was the dominant force. And Hero had a very unique PvP finals. One, it was really hyped because obviously Hero, best Korean Protoss player, Max Packs, best Protoss in Europe, arguably, and I would say, I think we've said it before, that Max Packs has the best PvP in the world. Hero, he's been doing some interesting builds. He's been doing his best Max Packs impression. The Max Packs PvP opener that he goes for, where he goes Gate, Cyber, Double Gas, Stargate into an expansion on the high ground or even on the low ground, Hero has been doing the same thing. Against Trap and against Max Packs as well. It was crazy, but Hero, he's been embracing it a lot more.
I see. Hero. Yeah, he tried to use Max Packs' builds against Max Packs, and or rather he was using Max Packs' builds, and then it worked out really well for him until he faced Max Packs himself.
True. I mean, he took a map. He was able to take a map. He was able to make a series out of it. But yeah, I do think that right now Hero's PvP, because we casted him here and a bit of a teaser, but we also casted him that night in a Lima League, where we also casted his PvPs, and he was doing the same thing. I did notice he was doing the same thing. He was doing the Max X builds as well against other opponents in a Lima League. And it does feel like he's at least experimenting or maybe just like exploring this avenue of PvP. I don't know if he's going to stick with it. This is something that I notice with Hero and Dark. They often go through phases where they'll do like a build for like 2 weeks and then they'll stop. But then like a month from now, they'll do it like once in a series or twice or like once every now and then, right? It becomes like a build that they have up their sleeve that they embrace.
You say a pattern. I think it's more of just hammering it down for them, right? Just getting really used to it and just mastering it. And once you're satisfied with how well they're able to execute it, and now that you bring it up, I remember there was one phase last year where Dark specifically was playing around a lot with was it Ravagers? Some kind of weird Ravager build that he was literally doing nothing but that. And to his credit, it was successful. It wasn't quite like, Cure going 3 racks every TVP and it never working out. Man, Dark would just literally do that non-stop for like 2 weeks, and then we never saw it again in the next few Open Cups. We never saw it again. But then he played in GSL, specifically GSL Finals, whipped it out against Maru. Huge success. And it's like, I remember Dark doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember Dark specifically doing that as well. It was during the Ancient Cistern map pool where Dark, as you said, for like 2 weeks straight
Right, that would've been
ESL
Super Tournament. My mistake.
Yeah. This is for a different build, but it was for Ancient Cistern. He went for proxy hatch. He was doing non-stop proxy hatch in ZVP. He was doing it in KSL, in ESL Open Cup Asia, in ESL Open Cup Americas, non-stop for like 2 weeks, and then he stopped. And then he would like whip it out. He even still whips it out every now and then to kind of like throw a player off as well. And yeah, that's kind of what both Hero and Dark do quite often. That's the vibe that I'm getting here for Hero as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way of doing it, right? Some players look at these online cups and look at it as, it's just another tournament. It's smaller, but, it's another way of me earning my keep. And others approach an online cup like this more specifically for practice or for specialized practice, when they can be a scenario where it's no longer them just grinding out games against AI to perfect a build, or grinding out games against practice partners who at that point they already know what's coming to them. This is more of just them releasing it into the wild is one way of putting it, to see if it will work in, more of a formal competitive environment. I mean, I know these are online events, so they're still playing in their bedroom, but the fact that they don't know who they're going to be up against next is what they want to see if it works against.
Yeah, it's a good way to refine builds. It's a really good way to refine them, to kind of figure out the ins and outs of them as well, the strengths and weaknesses, and it is something that a lot of these players do embrace when it comes to these online cups and online tournaments. So again, that's kind of like the vibe that I'm getting here from Hero, whether he's refining it or testing it, bearing in mind that PvP is very different now. I say very different. With the removal of shield battery overcharge, I was concerned for MaxPax's PvP and his greedy builds and whether or not he could actually defend even without shield battery overcharge. So I was really curious how that would pan out. And yeah, it's been interesting to see kind of like MaxPax's own adaptations as well in PvP. And it feels like there's a bit of a meta shift going on at the moment in a lot of that. So yeah, it's been cool to see that. MaxPax still did take the series, but it was fun to see them both duke it out.
I can imagine. I mean... Yeah, I can imagine Hero. This is the player who, of course, when he did an off-race show match against Oliveira, literally did nothing but proxy 2 racks 7 games in a row. So I would believe that from Hero. They just did the same thing over and over and over again until it stopped working, or even after it stopped working.
For sure. As that leads us into a Lima League again. This was that evening. We did cover a Lima League as well. VODs are going to be available on YouTube tomorrow. They are scheduled for tomorrow to go live. So as a heads up, VODs will be soon available. We did cast this live over on Chizjik. And once again, a lot of PvPs were held, and we were able to experience Hero do something similar to MaxPax against Down and against Trap as well.
Using the builds against them.
Let's go. But it was a big bracket, and once again, it's really cool to see even some Europeans take part, whereas they usually would not.
Azura. Hell yeah.
Yeah, Azura competed.
StarCraft Historian played.
Yeah. StarCraft Historian showed up.
Although I believe he does live in Korea now, so maybe not that as difficult for him.
Mana was there. Armani made his return after officially retiring like last year. Like Armani hasn't been around for a while, but yeah, did suddenly arrive, did get knocked out by Oliveira early on, but really fun to see Armani come back.
That's insane to me. Armani, he had a little bit of an anticlimactic exit, I would say, from competitive play. I remember it was either 2020 or 2021. I remember Armani really having a big breakout and really thinking like, oh man, a couple more months of like really dedicated practice, and Armani, he's going to be he's going to be up there. You know, Rogue going to the military, and we don't know when Solo's going to be going as well. Sue going into the military. Armani, he's looking to fill in that spot, and then he just went to military service before he could really get to that meteoric rise. And I think afterwards did announce that he was planning to retire, but yeah, I wouldn't be too opposed to him returning here. Would
Yeah,
be
if you
pretty cool
remember,
to see.
yeah, it was after military where he came back and he joined Kwangdong Freaks, and he played in like a
Did
season of WTL. It was like Armani, it was Keen. There were some old school players on Kwangdong Freaks. This was like last year, I think, or something. But after they got knocked out of
Oh,
WTL, um,
I
yeah,
remember.
that's when.
I remember this because this was also the season when when the Ducklings made it to Code S.
Yeah.
That was
And
maybe 2 years ago.
yeah, it was after that conclusion of that season of WTL where Armani did announce his retirement. That was also when Kwangdong announced their disbandment as well of their team.
Mhm.
But yeah, so it's been a while, but it's great to see Armani return. Definitely. So we got a lot of love from Armani here, 100%. When it comes to some of these specific matches, we did cast Homeowner versus Rogue. Big win for Homeowner. He 2-0'd Rogue, and I alluded to this earlier. Do you know how he did it?
By being smarter.
Uh-huh.
That's how
How
by
so?
outplaying him
Uh-huh.
at his own game. By
He
figuring
made-
out what the most
Uh-huh.
broken bullshit in this patch is and exploiting the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
love
go.
to. I hate to see it to anyone other than Rogue. Because Rogue is notorious for doing that, so I'm like, yeah, how does that feel?
True. Homeowner, he did go mass Cyclone, did make the Cyclowns Bappy all over Rogue. Again, I do recommend the
See-
VODs as we did cast it, and it was a fun series, let me say.
See, that's the thing, right? Because on the one hand, that's the thing that makes it bittersweet, right? Because on the one hand, it's funny to me, and it would be hilarious to see Rogue get beaten by something completely broken, but that thing that was broken was Cyclone, so I don't know if I can really revel in this. Like I feel for Rogue here. I don't know if I can really revel in this and be like, how does that feel? Your own medicine, Rogue. When I'm like, that can't feel good for anyone. I can't even get satisfaction from this.
No. But yeah, Homeowner, so he did cause an upset, bearing in mind this is a Rogue that is in form and did recently defeat Clem, of course, at the Big Little Cup.
Yep.
So Rogue, he is definitely not like out of form or out of shape or anything like that.
Yeah. And taking my fanboyism a little bit of a step back. Aside from beating a Rogue who is in form here, I am just really curious about the series as well. I didn't get to watch it, but when I look at it on paper, I think of Rogue and I think of Honmono, and those are two of the most creative players of their respective races. Rogue in particular, I mean, I meme about it all the time, but he is the one. He has like some sixth sense of figuring out what the most exploitable thing is in any given patch, and Honmono, meanwhile, is somebody who will just throw anything at a wall and see what sticks. So
Yep.
I mean, the way you're describing it makes me think that maybe I'm hyping myself a little bit too much for this match in particular.
mean,
but
It was
curious to see how it came out.
I mean, it was chaotic. It was a very chaotic series, and it was really fun as well. I will say, chaos from both sides is what I will emphasize. So it was a great best of 3. Likewise, we had Nickrat forcing Hero to the ace match. Nickrat, he is very aggressive in TVP, and he was able to not just Nickrat. I feel like Nickrat and Homeowner, they don't do the same builds, but they have like a very similar kind of approach to TVP, where they just want to be in your face and they just want to pull. They just want to pull the boys. They just.
It's like how Maru and Spirit play pretty differently, but they share a similar vibe, which is why they both. But they share that similar mad-led vibes, you know, when it comes to the play style. So.
Yeah. So Hero, he definitely stumbled his way through those Terran players. Did make his way through, and you can see here that Hero, he did not have an easy time here in this tournament. Every single series went to the ace match, leading into the finals. Whether he was up against Trap, Zaun, Homono, and Nickrat as well.
He denied the Trap Oliveira rematch.
True. You're not wrong. True. He does deny it. Again, Hero in those PvPs was going very much so for a lot of max packs openers. Really interesting to see Hero explore that against other Protoss players. Meanwhile, I do have a bit of a PSA coming into Oliveira's run. Fun fact: Oliveira, something did happen. I don't know if it happened before. Maybe Kuro can tell us. I know that it happened before the semis. I don't know if it happened before the quarterfinals. I don't know if Oliveira was playing for the entire tournament, for example, in the States. But Oliveira, he unfortunately had no internet. His internet went out, and he could
Yep.
not. And as a result, he was playing on his 5Gs, Pappy. His phone internet
Let's
instead.
go.
High latency, high ping phone
Oof.
internet, Pappy. Oh my
So
god.
I don't know when it happened, but we got notified about it before the semifinals, and we were originally planning to just switch the semifinals and wait for his internet to come back, but he basically
But it never came
it
back.
sounds like he did not expect it to come back anytime soon, so he just decided to play it out anyway.
Yeah, and it didn't come back. It didn't come back. And because Oliveira was playing on his phone internet, because he was lagging as well, and he was even letting us know in the in-game lobby chat, he was a little bit sad and wasn't quite expecting too much. He cheesed the hell out of Creator. He like every game. He even went for, like, I think it was game 1. He went for a 1 base all in. Game 2 went for a 2 base all in. Just hyper aggression out of Oliveira. And in the finals, same thing. He all in every single game. Like there was no macro at all out of Oliveira. No macro whatsoever. It's
Oof.
crazy.
Makes sense, I suppose. You don't want
Mhm.
the game to go on to get to a state where you really have to control your units and really have to make sure you have the perfect positioning. So yeah, it makes sense. And it looks like Oliveira, with those aggressive builds, was at least able to make it to the finals. But yeah,
Yeah.
fell against a player who is much more well versed when it comes
Mhm.
to aggressive cheese than
For
Creator
sure.
is.
I mean, he made it through Homono and Nickrecht. I mean,
Yeah.
like he was already warmed up,
Uh,
Pappy, for the defense against the all-ins. So it was a pretty short series. It was a pretty short finals, I should emphasize. I know that Wardy did a replay cast. I didn't get to tell him, so I don't know if he knows coming into his cast that like Oliveira had no internet or had limited internet. So I'm curious as to what his thoughts were as to why Oliveira cheesed every game. But I hope someone in the chat was able to tell him. But yeah, Oliveira he did all in every game for that reason, just because of the high latency.
He may not have been at HomeStory Cup, but he got the HomeStory Cup experience.
Hey, true, true. Aye. So congratulations, Oliveira, for making it to the finals. Shout out to Hero, of course, for maintaining himself and for taking the win in the end. Once again, no Zerg representation. There was no Solar, there was no Shin, there was no Dark either. But we did have some returning Zerg players like Su, Rogue, and Armani. So yeah, some unsuspecting Zerg showed up instead, which was really cool to see.
Yes.
I mean, they didn't perform too well, but it was cool that they signed up. You know?
I was gonna be
Cool.
like, Mom, can we have Dark Shin and Solar? And it's like we have Dark Shin and Solar at home, and it's Rogue, Sue, and Armani. Rogue and Sue, world champions, by the way.
Yeah, true,
but
they
at this
are.
point, they are they are returning players. They're not at the tip top. They're not at tip top form like they were back when they actually won those tournaments. It is all about Solar, Dark, and Shin right now when it comes to
For
Korean
sure.
Zerg.
I agree. And you could definitely argue that Rogue is in form, but I mean, again, he got homeowner. Like, what do you expect? Like, what do you? He can defeat anyone, man. He's an animal. He's an absolute animal. So with that does conclude Elima League. Again, Elima League was held a couple of days ago. VOD's going to be available on YouTube tomorrow, and that leads us into the Sparkling Tuna Cup.
Yes, and I'm going to tangent real quick, even though Kuro told us not to tangent today. So we're going on a timer. I just realized Shin Solar and Shin Dark, those are flavors for Shin Ramyun that you can.
Oh,
those are ideas for flavors for Shin Ramyun. I should clarify. Shin Ramyun,
Solar and Shin Dark.
Shin Ramyun. Get on those. Shin Dark, it can be like a more shoyu kind of soy sauce. I don't know what the Korean term for shoyu base, but like the soy sauce based broth. Shin Solar, that can be, I don't know, super spicy. like the sun.
That
You know,
that could either be super spicy or maybe like a
or like a
laksa
light
soup
broth.
kind of variation, like
Oh,
maybe.
true, like a milky soup, like a
Yeah,
laksa milk.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
not fond of instant laksa, personally, but
I've never had instant laksa. How did
I this it tastes absolutely awful.
Mm.
You need to have the actual, the actual broth
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. I've only had actual laksa, but yeah. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Unless they make the first good instant laksa.
True. Shin Corporation.
Shin,
Get on that.
get on
Get
it.
on that.
Get
You
on
can
it.
stay at my house because we have a laksa stall like across the street from where I live. If you
Oh,
want to
let's
study
go.
that, I'm offering not my bed, but you can have my sister's bed.
There you go.
She's not good. She doesn't need it.
There you go. There you go. But with that does lead us into Sparkling Tuna Cup here this week, and we had a debuting player,
Yes.
someone who has never competed in Sparkling Tuna Cup before. We had Creator coming in as the heavy favorite.
Yes, a lot of hype coming on behind. A lot of hype came in with Creator, and I actually was able to watch a little bit of the finals, not all of them. It was, I mean, incredibly close. Like you said, Creator was coming in as the hype player, the heavy favorite, and then in the finals, he was coming up against the young rising star, arguably the best player from the CIS region, or at the very least, top 2 player from the CIS region in these
Yeah.
past couple of weeks. It was an incredibly close series, an incredibly close late game going on in Abyssal Reform. I guess not really late game, but we got pretty far, and then we got to Ultra Love, and that map ended in like 15 minutes. I was like, oh
It did.
well, that was a rather anticlimactic end to that finals.
Yeah, Ultra Love was more of an abrupt end, 100%. But the lead up to Ultra Love and the series itself was beautiful. It was a sight to behold. Creator, of course, again, he did compete in our tournament for the first time. He had a close series against Homono. Homono, as you can imagine, he pulled the boys, went all in, took a map off of Creator, and again had a very close series, as he always does against Protoss players. Young Yakov, as you mentioned, has been on fire recently. Young Yakov, he's the most recent Fire Cup champion, and has been looking very strong against players like Wayne, against other competitors in the CIS region. So yeah, it was just it made for a really fun finals and a really unexpected finals as well. You don't often see these two face up against each other.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not like they don't play in the same tournaments. Well, and there are definitely some tournaments where Creator's more active in than Young Yakov, and vice versa, obviously. But yeah, it's just for whatever reason, they just never get seeded against each other. So it was really cool to see their style clash, or to see how their respective styles kind of clashed here in the grand finals.
For sure, for sure. It was a lot of good fun, and I hope to see more of the two of them in future Sparkling Tuna Cups. This is
Yes,
Creator's
and
first endeavor here. He wasn't quite able to walk that royal road, but I hope to see more of him in the
yes.
future.
Would be really cool to see more of Creator. I mean, huge Creator fan, so here on this channel, so a little. I myself am a little bit biased. I'm always gonna be cheering for him, but yeah, I would like to see more of him. But I also like to see more of another player making their debut in our tournaments, not in the Tuna Cup, which is such a missed opportunity. I was so mad when I woke up this morning and I saw and I looked into Discord and I was like, he actually played and he won. Not the Sparkling Tuna Cup, but the Tenacious Turtle Tussle, which was literally happened just today, won by Ryung.
This morning, we had the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. As you mentioned, Ryung, he debuted himself for the first time in any of our tournaments. Ryung, I believe he did sign up to a Sparkling Tuna Cup like 1 or 2 weeks ago, but he didn't check in. Check in, so
and we had a lot of harsh words for him then. So thanks, Crank, for nagging him into checking into not the Tuna Cup, which would have been fitting, but at least one of our tournaments.
Yeah, at least the turtle, And Ryung had a strong showing, as you did mention. Did go to the ace match against Nickrat. Nickrat looking on fire this morning, mate. Going up against Ryung, had a very intense TVT, was able to catch Ryung with his pants down in that first game. But then Ryung, it did feel like he got a little bit upset after that. I don't know if you watched that series, but if you missed out, I do recommend Ryung versus Nickrat, especially game one. Game one was crazy. Basically, what
I
happened? Bit of a spoiler.
right.
Nick Rack went for a two-base all in. He went for a two-base all in with Mass Viking into Liberator. It's kind of the special build, the two-port all in.
Yeah.
Did go for it. Ryung didn't scout it. He went for a
The
faster
TY
TC.
special. Yeah.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Ryung didn't scout it. He went for a third CC. Ryung got caught with his pants down. He lost, like, I want to say 28 SCVs in the defense. He didn't die, but he lost a lot trying to survive. He was down to half the supply, half the work account. And, mate, he survived like another 10 minutes. And he was popping off, going for, like, double drop play towards north, double drop play towards the south. He was picking up tanks, picking off mineral lines. He made a game out of it. It was crazy. like Ryung, he like turned his wrists on. It was crazy. He like went full beyond, mate. It was crazy. I was like, he was playing like he was 20 years younger, mate. It was crazy. Oh my god.
And here's the thing: I know that Ryung actually does play with like wristbands on.
Yeah.
Not weighted wristbands. They are more for just to prevent calluses on his wrists. But I like to imagine that moment. He took them off, and he dropped them, and they exploded because of the impact. It broke his floor, and he was like, "I'm free."
Yes, exactly. The weighted wristbands went off. He was unleashed, mate. It was crazy. So very fun series between Ryung and Nick Rack, especially because you don't often see that kind of speed and that kind of tenacity out of Ryung. It felt like he was really fighting for it.
I mean, he's an old sir, It's why, as much as I would like to call myself the #1 fan of Ryung out there, I have to say it Steadfast is actually the #1 fan of Ryung.
There you go.
The old sirs.
Smurge. But yeah, we got a lot of love for Ryung. When it comes to the lower half of the bracket, Geralt made his way through Vindicta. That was also a very fun series. Fun fact, Geralt versus Vindicta, that best of 3, that lasted an hour. That was a lot of late game. each game was 30 minutes, unironically. That was a very long series. Man. It was holding everything up. Kuro
waiting it deep into the night.
It's the reason why Kuro didn't go to bed until like 5 a.m.
She didn't go to bed at all. As a matter of fact, she stayed up for the podcast.
There you go. So Este, Geralt, and Vindicta. But we also had for the first time here in our tournament, Mark, the content man himself.
Ooh, yeah. Kind of glossed over that a little bit. I was pretty sure that Euthermal signed up for like something of ours back in the fast, but no, it was not the case. It's just
he has played before.
Oh, okay.
Just not in
there we go. Okay, so you're gaslighting me, like. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. It's not in the turtle. Debut in the turtle. There you go.
Debut in the turtle. Played in an SEC before. Yeah, it's coming back to me. See, I should have trusted myself. Why do I let myself get gaslighted?
There you go.
But I think it's the first time he signed up for one of our tournaments that's random. So you know what? That's what we're going with. First time Euthermal played as a random player.
There you go.
In our tournaments. And also in the Turtle Tussle. There we go. I didn't get gaslighted.
But yeah, he hasn't competed in this before. For those that are curious, Euthermal, he is living in Mexico at the moment. He's been in Mexico for the past couple of months. He's not in Europe. So this is actually a pretty good time slot for him, as this is more catered towards the American time zone. And I wasn't able to cast it because I just mentioned I was locked in an hour-long series with Geralt versus Vindicta. But at the same time, Euthermal took down young Yakov. I was very shocked to see that series, to see that score after coming out of that series. That was crazy.
Like you were mentioning, Euthermal nowadays not super active as a pro player. He's focusing a lot more on content. He's focusing a lot more on making videos, off racing a lot, playing in SC Evolution, and just having fun with the game. Not super competitive nowadays, but still proves that he's still got it in him to take it to the best.
Oh yeah, exactly. Really impressive performance there out of Euthermal. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened in that series. I don't know exactly the score line or what did occur, but regardless, really cool to see that result nonetheless. Well, again, I don't know what happened in those specific games, but really impressive stuff. Did go up against Geralt. Geralt was much more informed though. He had a much more dominant showing, and then we had our grand finals as well with Ryung. He popped off. What I will say is that I want to say it was game 3 was the closest on Whispers of Gold. We had a very clutch moment there between Ryung and Geralt, but Ryung overall was still looking very much so in form, and even did flex mech at some point in this series as well when he went mass cycling. So the King's Cove. Uh,
I retract my ooh, and instead would like to bring out a.
yeah, 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 yeah. It's becoming a thing again. It's becoming a thing again. Oh boy.
Well, yeah, it's like we save TBT, but at what cost? It's like,
Yeah. So yeah, so with that, that does conclude, or that does mean that Ryung, of course, he does walk that royal road here in the Tenacious Turtle Tussle, is the champion in this event for the first time. So congratulations. First time competing as well, and I hope to see more of Ryung in the future. Definitely in future events. Speaking of future events, we have the sign up list.
Indeed, we do. Current open tournaments could be have been updated, and they will be taking us all the way till the end of December. Which, yeah, so far that's been what the announcements have been. I mean, it's a little bit weird to announce things that will happen next month. So, yeah, we got you covered here over in the sign up list. Exclamation mark sign up in the chat. We'll bring you to the Wikipedia page, and we'll bring you to some of the upcoming events that we have this week in particular. As I double check the date, we of course will have in about half an hour the Asia qualifiers for Masters Coliseum 8, and then a couple hours after that. I say a couple hours. It's more like one day after that. 24 hours after that, the EU and Americas qualifiers for Masters Coliseum. We'll also have the return of the KSL Korean Star League. That's once again open tournament for anyone who can sign up. For anyone around the world to sign up for, just a little bit more friendly for the Korean time zone. And then a couple hours after that, we have the Korean qualifiers for Master Coliseum number 8. A little bit after that, and this is technically open, but you do have to be in the area to actually play in it. Cheesadelphia. It's gonna be happening.
Yeah, we have Cheesadelphia over the weekend. We will also be the main casters for Cheesadelphia as well. We're going to be all over that. As you mentioned, we have all the Master Coliseum qualifiers. We have Hub Cup number 1, which I believe is a new tournament that Hubsaya is going to be hosting and running.
Yeah.
I believe that's going to be a little bit more of a European-friendly time slot for that tournament. It's going to be very early for us. Very, very early. Aye, aye, aye. But a big event is going to be happening there. Massive prize pool, 2,500 USD prize pool for that one weekly, by the way. Crazy, crazy. That's not going to be a trend for the future weeks. It's just for the first one. There was like a big sponsor and like a big like fun, crowd fund for the event. So Hubsai is going to be hosting that. Do look forward to it. It's going to be amazing, I'm sure. And yeah, we have many more events to come. Alima League, STC, Sea Duckling Open, and many more.
Oh, I need to start practicing again.
I want to draw your attention to one more tournament that you didn't read, which is the Sunrise Cup Navel Orange Cup. Because, fun fact, the winner of that cup earns 10 kilos of oranges.
I did notice that. Yeah, I was. I did see the kilograms. I was very confused because I didn't know what exactly it was. But you were telling me, okay, so they earn oranges. That's. There you go. You heard about the pizza pie cup where you earn a pizza? Here we give you bushels of oranges.
I don't see that. Where is that?
The challenge. On the challenge, it says I think first place is 10 kilograms of oranges. Second place is 5 kilograms of oranges, and then third and fourth is 2.5 kilograms of oranges.
They actually mapped it out, yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Some oranges.
Yeah.
It's good. They give you the
vitamin C.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Initiative.
Sunrise, you know?
True.
It's actually good luck in China to give somebody oranges. So
there you go. Good luck cup.
Yeah, it's a good luck cup. But you have to win in order to get the good luck, so.
Yeah, you gotta earn the good luck, mate. Yeah, you just get it.
Yeah.
True. But with that does bring us to an end here. Again, just we don't have as many events to go over this time, just because so much of the week was taken up by HomeStory Cup, of course. So there just wasn't as much time for other weeklies or other tournaments. But of course, we do have to wrap up a little bit earlier as well because of the Master Coliseum qualifier. Again, if you're curious, the stream is going to go live right after it goes down, and we will have a countdown timer, 30 minutes until the qualifier.
There we go. Ooh. We actually made it in time.
Yeah, there we go. So we have 30 minutes to get ready to get some food and to prepare for the cast. So again, I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. Hope you all had a great time catching up with this week's news in StarCraft. Again, this is a weekly podcast. We will be hosting this next week as well, going over everything that does go on. If we do miss something, if you want us to talk about something, then you can let us know. You can let us know on Twitch chat. You can let us know on Discord as well, and we will update our topic list and we'll get around to it.
Indeed, we shall. That's why you should Discord in the chat. That will bring you to the CranKy Ducklings Discord server. It's probably the quickest way to contact any of us here if there's anything that you would like to see updated for the upcoming PondCast.
For sure.
I believe.
Exactly.
No, I was just going to double check. I think we have 2 more in 2024.
Yeah, I know that we might be taking a week off towards the end just because of the holidays, just because of Christmas and New Year's. So we don't want to have too much during that holiday period. So yeah, we're nearing the end of the year, and if you want to see more of us, if you want to see more of Yaku Papi, end of year stream.
I have downloaded StarCraft 1 or StarCraft Remastered.
Let's go.
We'll see if I can find a time for maybe next week.
Maybe.
It might be free. Maybe. I'm not gonna commit to anything here, but yeah, if I do end up streaming, I have some ideas. I have some ideas. It's either gonna be StarCraft 1 campaign, or I picked this up for literally $1 on the Steam sale. I realized I never actually played Portal. Like, I watched people play Portal, but I never actually played it myself. I watched people play it, but I never actually played it. So this is Portal 1, so that might be an idea. I heard that it's a little bit shorter as well, so that would be ideal. Try to just finish it in one stream.
It's not too long of a game, you know. You can one sitting, maybe 2 sittings. You're good to go.
So. Yeah, those are some ideas boiling over in my head, and so if you would like to peer pressure, if you would like to watch that's twitch.tv/yakuzaku1, and if you would like to @me daily and harass me into streaming either one of those 2, and also let me know which one you would prefer, !Discord in the chat, as we mentioned earlier. I'm there, Light's there, Kuro's also there. And also, I'm on Twitter @EmporeYakuzaku, but I only am on Twitter for half an hour a day, because that's how much of a limit I've given myself. So that Blue Sky. Yakuzaku.bluesky.social is the other place you can find me, and you can find my shit posts.
There you go. There you go. Meanwhile, you can follow myself at Latin_VIP. I do stream whenever I can. I just haven't been able to for the past week, as we have been quite busy casting here on the CranKy Ducklings. I might have some time for a ladder stream next week. So if you're curious, I do not ladder stream here on the CranKy Ducklings. I ladder stream over on my own personal channel. You can follow me there if you wish. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We are going to be wrapping up. The next cast on the CranKy Ducklings is in half an hour. So we'll see you there for the Masters Coliseum 8 Asia qualifier.
Yeah. Till then.
Ciao.
Bella.